Chapter 1882. Invincible? It will. Mei Li had a strange expression on her face. Has this human gone mad? In the boundless universe, who would dare to call themselves invincible? Invincible. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from the side. Xian turned around and looked over. The space nearby had suddenly become illusory, and it wasn't long before a man walked out. The man had a robust figure and his face was covered in scales. At first glance he seemed extremely ferocious. A 14th rank expert. The man smiled and said, "Human, say you?" The sword in Xian's hand suddenly vanished. In the next moment the man's pupils constricted and he was just about to flee. However, he was still a bit too slow and the sword pierced through his forehead. A fountain of blood sprayed out. The man stared fixedly at Xian. At this moment his soul had been locked onto by Xian's sword. The man gazed at Xian. Spatial folding. You're only at the 10th rank, how could you? Right at this moment Xian issued a command in his heart, and the azure profound sword directly absorbed the man's soul. The expressions of the spirit beast experts instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. This human instantly killed a 14th rank expert. Mei Li's expression was slightly serious as well. The growth of Xian's strength was slightly terrifying. How long had it been? Well, Mei Li suddenly recalled that even though only a few days had passed in the outside world, it had been a few dozen years in Xiaota's body. However, even then the speed at which Xian improved was too terrifying. Sword. Mei Li's gaze descended onto the azure profound sword in Xian's hand. This sword had directly increased Xian's strength by over a dozen levels. In the distance, after Xian killed the 14th rank expert, he didn't stop. He opened his palm and in an instant, the heads of all the spirit beast experts flew into the air. Instant kill. With his current flying sword, even a 14th rank expert could not block it, let alone these experts below the 14th rank. After the Qingxian sword absorbed the souls of the spirit beast clan's powerhouses, Xian put away the Qingxian sword. At this moment, the horizon in front of him suddenly split open and a shadow quietly appeared. Xian frowned. The phantom gradually solidified, and it didn't take long for a middle-aged man to appear in front of Xian. The middle-aged man wore a black robe and had a horn growing out of his head. 15th stage master. This person was the current patriarch of the spirit beast clan, Shou. Shou looked at Xian. We underestimated you. Xian smiled and said, as far as I know, I have no enmity with the spirit beasts. I wonder if you, Shou suddenly interrupted Xian's words. There was no enmity between us before, but isn't there enmity now? Xian looked at Shou and said with a smile, what you said makes sense. Shou stared at Xian. Do you dare to come to my spirit beast clan? Xian shook his head. I don't dare. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. He didn't make a move because the person in front of him was only a phantom, not the real body. Shou stared at the distant Xian. His gaze was like a blade, incomparably cold. On the other side, Xian directly returned to Xiaota. Take the initiative to go to the spirit beast clan? He wasn't an idiot. Now that he had the strength to go to the spirit beast clan and fight against the entire spirit beast clan? Wasn't that just courting death? Wouldn't it be better for him to cultivate in Xiaota and then kill his way over? Facing this kind of 15th stage expert, he didn't have any confidence. Not to mention 15th stage, even if it was 14th stage, if the other party was on guard, it would be difficult for him to instantly kill them. When he instantly killed that 14th stage expert, it was actually because he caught the other party off guard. And this spirit beast clan clearly had a 15th stage expert. Moreover, it was possible that there was more than one. The most important thing was that this kind of power had an ancestor or something. As they fought, they had to summon their ancestor. What a pain in the ass. This time he had to make thorough preparations before killing his way over to the spirit beast clan. Xian continued to fold the 6th layer of spacetime. If he could fold the 6th layer of spacetime, then he would have the ability to kill a 15th stage expert. During this time, Mei Li was constantly guiding Xian. Therefore the progress was quite smooth. However, the spirit beast clan clearly didn't want to give him time. Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly raised his head. He frowned, so fast. At the side, Mei Li smiled and said, you're already enough to attract the attention of the spirit beast clan. Right now they don't just want your sword, they want to get rid of you even more. Yi Xian didn't say anything. He left Xiao. As soon as he left Xiao Ta, the spirit beast clan's patriarch, Shogu, appeared in front of him. Shogu didn't look at Yi Xian. Instead, he looked at Mei Li, who was by Yi Xian's side. Heaven's abode's lord, are you going to help this human? Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian and then she smiled and said, yes. Shogu smiled. According to what I know, this person seems to want to destroy your heaven's abode. Mei Li smiled lightly. Patriarch Shogu, even though this sword is good, it's a hot potato. You have to think it through. Shogu nodded slightly. So you're here for this sword as well. I understand. Mei Li glanced at Shogu and shook her head. Understand my ass. You don't even know who you're facing. At this moment, Shogu suddenly turned his head. Beast desolate, I'll leave Palace Master Mei Li to you. As soon as he finished speaking, a beastman expert suddenly walked out from the right. That beastman expert gazed at Mei Li while a wisp of a smile arose on the corners of his mouth. Please provide me with your guidance. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure leaped up and vanished on the spot. Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian. Take care of yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot. In the next moment, both of them entered the 6th layer of space. Meanwhile, Shogu gazed at Yi Xian. Do you have anyone else? Yi Xian shook his head. No. Shogu stared at Yi Xian. That shouldn't be the case. A genius like you doesn't have anyone backing you? I don't believe it. Yi Xian smiled. Cut the crap. Do you want a one-on-one fight or a group fight? Shogu gazed at Yi Xian. One-on-one. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished. Spacetime folding. Moreover, it was the 6th layer of spacetime folding. At the instant that Shogu vanished, Yi Xian's expression instantly changed, and he immediately utilized the invincible sword domain. In terms of speed, he was definitely inferior to Shogu, so he could only choose to defend. Bang! As soon as Yi Xian utilized the invincible sword domain, a powerful force swept over and his face instantly turned pale. Meanwhile, the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly vanished. As the sound of something tearing resounded, Shogu retreated explosively by 300 m. Shogu glanced at his right hand and there was a deep scar on it. Shogu raised his head to look at Yi Xian. Space-time folding. You're only at the 10th level, so how can you? Right at this moment, Yi Xian's sword suddenly vanished once more, and Shogu's body suddenly became illusory. The azure sword slashed through the air. In the distance, Yi Xian's pupils suddenly constricted, and he immediately utilized the core sword domain. An expanse of sword light drowned him because Shogu had directly folded spacetime and arrived in front of him. Moreover, he'd even smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. Bang! Countless rays of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian retreated explosively by over 10 kilometers. Meanwhile, Shogu suddenly took a step forward, and the expanse of spacetime where Yi Xian resided was instantly transformed into an abyss. A spacetime abyss. Merely a single move had blasted Yi Xian into a spacetime abyss. However, to Shogu's disbelief, Yi Xian, who just entered the spacetime abyss, had directly returned to the real world. He's out. Shogu was slightly stunned. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Shogu, and he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Draw the sword to decide life and death. Presently, the speed of his flying sword wasn't sufficient to kill Shogu. Since speed couldn't kill Shogu, then he could only choose strength. As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the expanse of spacetime where Shogu resided was instantly obliterated, and even the 5th layer of spacetime was obliterated. Shogu's face was emotionless as he immediately smashed his fist forward. A ray of sword light was obliterated by Shogu's fist. At the same time, Yi Xian instantly retreated explosively by 30 kilometers. His strength had been suppressed. After Yi Xian stopped moving, he wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and then his eyes gradually turned blood red. Bloodline energy. A wisp of disdain arose on the corners of Shogu's mouth. You actually dared to utilize the strength of your bloodline in front of me. Could it be that you don't know that my Beast Spirit clan's bloodline is ranked at the 5th position in the world? As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, and a strand of bloodline pressure swept directly towards Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly clenched his fists tightly, and then a strand of formidable bloodline pressure surged out from within him like tidewater. It was a competition of bloodlines. However, Shogu's bloodline pressure had just come into contact with Yi Xian's bloodline pressure when it was instantly dispersed. Shogu's face was filled with disbelief when he witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly charged over to him and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A sword howl resounded as a ray of blood-red light slashed down. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Shogu's eyes, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground and smashed his fist forward. A single punch. Rumble. An expanse of blood-red light was blasted apart, and then Yi Xian's figure was blasted flying. However, Shogu suddenly charged forward and stomped his foot forward. Bang. The space in the surroundings collapsed. Yi Xian hurriedly utilized the sword domain. However, even the sword domain wasn't able to resist the force of Shogu's kick. Rumble. The sword domain was destroyed and then Yi Xian was instantly blasted 30 kilometers away. He just stopped when the green profound sword in his hand suddenly vanished. Shogu's eyes narrowed slightly as he raised his arm horizontally to block the attack. Bang. The green profound sword was blasted flying. However, Shogu's right arm was directly split apart, and he was pushed 300 m back. After he stopped, Shogu glanced at the green profound sword in front of Yi Xian, and he spoke with slight excitement, "What a good sword." Yi Xian lightly waved the green profound sword in his hand, and a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He couldn't defeat him. Facing this kind of 15th phase super expert he still couldn't beat, especially this kind of 15th phase expert who also had a powerful physical body. At this moment an old man in a long robe appeared in front of Shogu. The old man glanced at Yi Xian in the distance and said, "Patriarch, this person isn't simple." Behind him, Shogu laughed savagely. "It doesn't matter. No matter how strong the person behind him is, how strong can he be? What is the human race? A piece of trash that can't even be considered a rank 2 civilization. P.S. Every time more people vote and reward I get a little carried away. Everyone please don't vote and reward. Let me calm down. My income has plummeted so I'll work hard." Chapter 1883. The Human Race. Shogu really looked down on the human race. After all, the human race was not even a level 2 civilization while the spirit beast race was a level 5 civilization. Next to Shogu, the old man in a long robe said in a deep voice, "The human race is indeed weak, but the sword in this person's hand is extraordinary. If the person who made this sword is a human..." Shogu immediately shook his head. "Absolutely impossible. The spacetime Tao contained in this sword is even above the spacetime spirit seal. How could a mere human race create such a divine sword? This human must have obtained this sword by luck." Saying that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Everything will be known after I capture this person." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly grasped at Yi Xian in the distance with his right hand. Boom. In an instant, the spacetime where Yi Xian was in suddenly became a cage. 6 spacetime cages. Obviously, he wanted to capture Yi Xian alive. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned into a sword light and disappeared. He just disappeared. Seeing this, Shogu was stunned. He ran away. This human ran away from his spacetime cage. When he came back to his senses, Yi Xian had completely disappeared. Shogu's face instantly became extremely gloomy. "I was careless." Saying that, he turned his head and looked to the side. "Search for this person with all your strength." Understood. Behind Shogu, countless spirit beast experts chased into the distance. Shogu seemed to think of something. He suddenly turned his head and looked to the side. There, Meili, who was fighting with the spirit beast experts, had stopped. Shogu looked at Meili. "Palace Master Meili, your doppelganger has such strength. This proves that your original body has reached level 15. An expert like you should not be stupid. It is not wise for you to help a human and become enemies with the spirit beast race." Meili smiled and said, "Shogu, let's wait and see." Saying that, her body gradually became illusory. She was going to disappear. She was originally a doppelganger. It was not easy for her to be able to drag on with a super expert until now. The long-robed elder beside Shogu said in a deep voice, "I feel that this matter is not simple. Since Palace Master Meili is helping Yi Xian, I'm afraid." Shogu suddenly said, "She's just like us. She wants Yi Xian's sword." The long-robed old man still wanted to say something, but Shogu spoke again. "Elder Zhou Xian seems to be very afraid of this human." The old man called Zhou Xian spoke in a deep voice. "I just feel that this human isn't simple. We can't underestimate him. Shogu glanced at Zhou Xian and said with a smile, I know he's not simple, but does our spirit beast clan have a way out now? No. Since we've already become enemies, then we should naturally exterminate them and not leave any future troubles. With that he turned around and left. The long-robed old man sighed softly. His intuition told him that this human was not normal. If he wasn't careful, the spirit beast would face a great disaster. In this vast universe, although the spirit beast race was a level 5 civilization, there were many other level 5 civilizations. There were even the legendary level 6 civilizations. The stronger they were, the more careful they had to be. The slightest bit of carelessness could consign them to eternal damnation. Zhou Xian sighed softly, turned around and left. On the other side, Yi Xian directly arrived at the 7th layer of spacetime. After he entered the 7th layer of spacetime, it was absolutely impossible for Shogu and the other experts to find him. After all, Shogu was only a level 15 expert. At most he could only enter the 6th layer of spacetime. The 7th layer of spacetime was completely dark. Strictly speaking, the 7th layer of spacetime was formed by a spacetime black hole. The pressure here was more than 100 times stronger than the pressure in the 6th layer of spacetime. If it wasn't for the profound azure sword, he wouldn't have dared to enter. With his current strength, he was simply no different from an ant here. Not to mention him, even if the desolate antiquity came here, he would probably be wiped out in an instant. It could be said that the 6th layer of spacetime and the 7th layer of spacetime were worlds apart. This made Yi Xian's mood somewhat solemn. He could still face a level 15 expert. However, if he encountered an expert who could enter the 7th layer of spacetime, he definitely wouldn't be able to fight back. After a moment, Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and returned to Xiao Ta's body. Then he entered the 6th layer of spacetime and continued to fold the 6th layer of spacetime. Only by folding the 6th layer of spacetime would he have a chance to kill a level 15 expert. Otherwise, he would be crushed by his opponent in terms of speed. As for the 7th layer of spacetime, he didn't even think about it. It was definitely not something he could touch now. He had to admit that he was in a bit of a hurry. This was because he knew that if his opponent couldn't find him, he would definitely think of other ways. For example, he would look for the spirit of Nine Yin and use them or even the human race to threaten him. He had already figured out these enemies' tricks. Therefore he had to race against time. Otherwise he might fall into a passive position. Outside, somewhere in the starry sky, Shogu sat cross-legged in the starry sky. Behind him stood more than a dozen super experts of the Spirit Beast clan. He kept recalling the battle with Yi Xian in his mind. Finally he came to a conclusion. The reason why Yi Xian was able to fight with him for so long was because of that sword. If not for that sword, his spacetime suppression would have been enough to kill Yi Xian. However, because of that sword, his spacetime suppression, spacetime cage and spacetime abyss were all ineffective against Yi Xian. Thinking of this, Shogu's expression gradually turned grave. At this moment he realized that the sword was even more terrifying than he had imagined. How did that human obtain this sword? Shogu's brows knitted together deeply. However, the doubt in his eyes soon turned into excitement. If that sword was in his hands, his battle prowess would increase by at least several times. Moreover, he might even be able to use that sword to reach a higher level. At that time he would be able to bring the otherworldly demonic race to a new height, far surpassing their ancestors. Thinking of this, Shogu immediately stood up. He turned to the side and asked, "Is there any news of that Yi Xian?" Zhou Xian shook his head. "That person seems to have evaporated into thin air. There's no news of him at all." Shogu frowned slightly. "You can't find him?" Zhou Xian nodded. "I can't find him." Shogu fell silent for a moment before he said, "According to what I know, that person seems to have a close relationship with the otherworldly demonic race." Zhou Xian glanced at Shogu. "Patriarch, what do you mean?" Shogu said, "To the otherworldly demonic race." After saying this, he vanished on the spot. It didn't take long for Shogu to arrive at the otherworldly spirit world with a group of spirit beast experts. In the sky above the otherworldly spirit world, the otherworldly spirit king glanced at Shogu and the others, and then he said, "King Shogu, I wonder where—" Shogu interrupted the otherworldly spirit king. "Where is that Yi Xian?" The otherworldly spirit king shook his head. "I don't know." Shogu looked at the otherworldly spirit king. "You don't know?" The otherworldly spirit king said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, our otherworldly spirit race really doesn't know where young Master Yi is." Although young Master Yi was on good terms with our otherworldly spirit race, when he left our otherworldly spirit race, Shogu suddenly interrupted the otherworldly spirit king. I don't want to listen to such nonsense. Today if Yi Xian doesn't appear, our beast spirit race will trample the otherworldly demonic race. The otherworldly spirit king's face turned slightly unsightly when he heard this. King Shogu, our otherworldly spirit race really doesn't know where young Master Yi is. You have to be reasonable. Reasonable? A wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of Shogu's mouth. Otherworldly spirit king, you're truly pitiful. Do you know what's the most useless thing in this world? It's the reason you spoke of earlier. In this world only one's fist matters. Only the party with the bigger fist is reasonable. You actually want to reason with me? How laughable. I'll tell you the truth as well. I know that your otherworldly spirit race doesn't know where Yi Xian is, and I intend to use the lives of your otherworldly spirit race to force Yi Xian out. The faces of the otherworldly spirit king and the other experts turned extremely unsightly when they heard this. This is clearly bullying you. Thinking so, the otherworldly spirit king turned to King Shogu and laughed heartily. King Shogu, our otherworldly spirit race actually knows where young Master Yi is. However, I refuse to tell you. King Shogu narrowed his eyes. Kill. Leave none alive. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the beast spirit race behind him charged forward. Below, the otherworldly spirit king suddenly roared furiously, "All clansmen heed my command. Fight to the death. Fight to the death." As he spoke, he charged forward. Behind him, countless experts of the otherworldly spirit race also charged forward. In the sky, the Beast Gu King was just about to attack. Right at this moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed and then he turned around. A ray of light suddenly flashed not too far away, and then the head of a spirit beast expert flew into the air in the next moment. The sword ray dissipated and Yi Xian appeared before everyone. Seeing Yi Xian appear, the otherworldly spirit king immediately heaved a sigh of relief. If young Master Yi still didn't appear, the otherworldly demonic race would probably be wiped out today. Because at present, the otherworldly demonic race was no match for the beast spirit race. Seeing Yi Xian, a smile appeared on the King Shogu's lips. Yi Xian, you sure are loyal to your friends. You really showed up. Yi Xian glanced at the otherworldly spirit king by the side. Senior Spirit King, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble. The otherworldly spirit king hurriedly shook his head. Oh no. Young Master Yi, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I only hate the fact that our otherworldly demonic race is too weak to help young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled and said, "This is my own matter. How can I trouble you?" As he spoke, he looked at the King Shogu and waved the azure profound sword in his hand. Then he said, "You want this sword?" The King Shogu gazed at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, you should be aware that your strength isn't worthy of this sword. Moreover, as far as I know, you're a smart person. You should be aware that it isn't a good thing for you to possess such a divine sword with your strength and status. If you're smart, then hand over the sword. If you do, then I can spare your life." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Really?" The King Shogu stared at Yi Xian. "Really?" Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, "Give me 3 days to consider." 3 days. The King Shogu frowned. He was about to speak when Shou Yan spoke abruptly. "Don't agree to his request. He's trying to buy time." The King Shogu gazed at Yi Xian. "No." Yi Xian glanced at Shou Yan and said, "King Shogu, rumor has it that you're invincible. I'd like to experience it for myself." Obviously, he wanted to fight one-on-one. The corners of Beast Gu's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. He was just about to speak when Shou Yan, who was beside him, suddenly said, "Don't agree with him. Patriarch, let's attack together. He has no chance at all." Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1884. Attack together? Yi Xian glanced at Shou Yan. "Motherfucker. This geezer is really bad." Meanwhile, Shogu suddenly said, "Why do this?" As he spoke, he walked towards Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, since you want to fight me in single combat, then I'll fulfill your wish." Shou Yan sighed softly when he heard Shogu. Yi Xian gazed at Shogu and smiled, as expected of the king of a clan. "You're bold. I Yi Xian admire you." Shogu smiled. "Cut the crap. Let's fight." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward, and then he smashed his fist forward. Bang! A fist swept through the surroundings, and the formidable force contained within it caused space to be obliterated everywhere it passed. Physical strength. Besides being skilled in the space-time Dao, Shogu's physical strength was extremely terrifying as well. Xian didn't think too much about it. He opened his palm and then the green profound sword flew out. Bang! A ray of light slashed onto the fist and it was instantly slashed into pieces. Meanwhile, Shogu suddenly appeared above Xian, and then he suddenly stomped his foot down. Rumble! The space around Xian instantly collapsed. Xian directly utilized the invincible sword domain, and it forcefully protected him. However, Shogu smashed his fist down once more. Rumble! The invincible sword domain collapsed, and then Xian was instantly blasted 3 kilometers away. Moreover, he'd entered the 6th level of the spatial abyss when his figure stopped moving. After Xian entered the 6th level of the spatial abyss, Shogu didn't attack again and he just watched. Meanwhile, Xian's figure became ethereal, and he returned to reality in the next moment. Shogu's eyes narrowed when he witnessed this scene, and they were filled with excitement. The sword. Xian's sword was able to bring him out of the spatial abyss. Needless to say, at this moment Shogu was both excited and shocked. He was excited because if this sword was in his hands, then the might it could display was simply unimaginable. He was shocked because this sword was actually so terrifying and was capable of bringing a living being out from a spatial abyss. This was truly terrifying. Without thinking too much, Shogu looked at Xian and took a step forward. With this step, his entire body arrived in front of Xian. At the same time, a powerful force instantly blasted towards Xian. Xian blocked with his sword. Boom! Xian was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away along with his sword. When he came to a stop, a trickle of blood slowly flowed from the corner of his mouth. Shogu looked at Xian with disdain. Xian, is this all you've got? Xian wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and said, I surrender. Surrender. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Including that beast Gu King. Shogu was stunned for a moment and then he roared with laughter. Surrender? If you surrendered just now, then I might have considered it. But it's too late now. Right at this moment, the sword in Xian's hand suddenly vanished. It was a spatial fold. Moreover, it was the 6th spatial fold. This sudden and unexpected event caused Shogu's expression to instantly change drastically. Because it was the 6th spatial fold and coupled with the fact that he'd underestimated Xian earlier, he'd never imagined that Xian would actually be able to fold the 6th spatial fold. So he could only defend passively right now. Shogu instinctively raised his arms in front of him to defend. Sword arrival. Bang. Everyone watched as Shogu's arms were chopped off, and then his body was blasted into pieces. As Shogu's soul retreated explosively, Xian pressed his fingers together and guided lightly, and then the green profound sword flew forward. The others hadn't even recovered from their shock when the green profound sword pierced through the center of Shogu's forehead. Bang! The green profound sword instantly absorbed Shogu's soul and didn't give him any chance. The countenances of all the beast spirit race experts instantly turned pale when they witnessed this scene. This human killed King Shogu? In the distance, Xian slowly closed his eyes. A short moment later, he opened his palm and the green profound sword flew back into his grasp. The green profound sword trembled slightly as Little Soul said excitedly, Young master, it's a great tonic. Xian grinned, there's still a lot. Zhou Xian stared fixedly at Xian. You acted weak first and then you took them by surprise and executed a killer move to kill them in a single strike. Human, how scheming of you. Xian gazed at Zhou Xian and the others and he didn't waste his breath at all. The green profound sword in his hand suddenly flew forward. At the instant he did, Zhou Xian had already appeared over 30 kilometers away. His sword pierced through the air. Xian fell silent when he witnessed this scene. Just as he'd expected, it would be very difficult for him to instantly kill such an expert if they were on guard. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian suddenly said, Retreat. As soon as he finished speaking, he and the other beast spirit race experts turned around and vanished into the starry sky. Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. In the next moment he immediately pursued them. Beast Spirit World. The Beast Spirit World was located in the Spirit Realm, and there were many powerful forces in the boundless Spirit Realm. All of them were rank 5 civilizations and the Beast Spirit race was just one of them. After Zhou Xian led all the beast spirit race experts back to the beast spirit race, he seized the opportunity to become the patriarch of the beast spirit race because Shogu had perished. Within the beast spirit race's main hall, Zhou Xian immediately gathered all the beast spirit race's experts. At the same time, all the grand formations of the beast spirit race were activated, and even some elders who were in seclusion were summoned. Within the main hall, Zhou Xian glanced at all the experts present and then he said, "Immediately notify the entire spirit realm. Tell them that Yi Xian possesses a divine artifact that surpasses the 6th level of spacetime. Not only will he be able to ignore the pressure of spacetime and the abyss of spacetime, he can even enter the 7th level of spacetime." Understood. One of the beast spirit race experts retreated. Zhou Xian said, "Elder Zhou Xian, go personally to the barbarian spirit race and tell them that if they're willing to help our beast spirit race, then our beast spirit race is willing to submit." Submit. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of all the beast spirit race experts within the hall changed drastically. Elder Zhou Qian said in a low voice, "Patriarch Zhou Xian, Yi Xian is only one person. We." Zhou Xian slowly closed his eyes. "We can't stop him." Zhou Qian said in a low voice, "We can still summon the ancestor." Zhou Xian glanced at Zhou Qian. "The patriarch is already dead. If we summon the ancestor, then our beast spirit race won't have any trump cards left. Even if we manage to defeat Yi Xian, our beast spirit race will immediately be divided up by the other races. At that time, we won't even have the qualifications to bargain. Our beast spirit race will have the qualifications to bargain with the barbarian spirit race if we summon the ancestor. Even if we submit to the barbarian spirit race's ancestor, our beast spirit race will have the qualifications to talk to the barbarian spirit race as long as we have this card. Moreover, once we submit to the barbarian spirit race's ancestor, then we'll be able to draw trouble to them. The barbarian spirit race is a subordinate race of the illusion ancestor, so once Yi Xian goes against them, then it's equivalent to going against the illusion ancestor. If he goes against the illusion ancestor, then no matter how formidable the power behind him is, he'll still die for sure." Zhou Qian hesitated for a moment when he heard this and then he said, "Does he have a formidable power behind him?" Zhou Xian said in a light voice, "How could such a person possibly grow to such an extent if he doesn't have any backing?" Zhou Qian intended to say something else, but a beast spirit race expert suddenly appeared within the hall. "Patriarch Yi Xian has arrived." Zhou Yan's eyes narrowed slightly and then he gazed at Zhou Qian. "Head to the barbarian spirit race right now." Zhou Qian nodded. Understood. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished from within the hall. In the sky above the beast spirit world, Yi Xian stood with his sword in hand. He chased all the way here. He naturally wouldn't let this matter rest. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and he gazed at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi, this is a misunderstanding. My beast spirit race is willing to compensate you for your losses." "We." Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "A misunderstanding? What a joke." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm. Zhou Yan's expression instantly changed drastically, and he was just about to attack when over a dozen heads suddenly shot into the sky. Yi Xian gazed at Zhou Yan and smiled. "I, Yi Xian, don't like to cause trouble, but I'll definitely annihilate anyone who dares offend me." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward. An expanse of blood-red sword light flashed through the battlefield. Zhou Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Activate the formation." As soon as he finished speaking, the space around Yi Xian warped. At the same time, a huge barrier of light enveloped the entire beast spirit world, and then countless strange talismans shot towards Yi Xian from within the barrier of light. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly as he stood within the warped space, and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Bang! Space shattered apart and the strange talismans in the surroundings instantly vanished. Zhou Yan's face instantly fell when he witnessed this scene. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when a voice suddenly resounded from afar. "Wait!" Zhou Yan instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this voice. "An expert from the barbarian spirit race has arrived." Yi Xian turned around and saw a middle-aged man walking over slowly from afar. He wasn't a human, but his appearance was actually 90% similar to a human. However, he was much stronger than a human. The barbarian spirit race expert sized Yi Xian up and then he said, "Are you a human?" Yi Xian smiled. Yes. That expert gazed at Zhou Xian. I don't care about the enmity between you and the beast spirit race, but from this moment onward, the beast spirit race has submitted to my barbarian spirit race. Now they're a subordinate race of my barbarian spirit race. Understand? Zhou Xian nodded. I understand. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly slashed with his sword. The head of that expert from the barbarian spirit race flew into the air. All the experts of the beast spirit race were stunned. This human actually dared to kill an expert from the barbarian spirit race? Zhou Xian instantly started laughing when he witnessed this scene. Now, enmity had been formed between the human and the barbarian spirit race. Zhou Xian turned around to gaze at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian spoke in a low voice. Do you know anything about the barbarian spirit race? Zhou Xian grinned. It wouldn't be too late to kill them first. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Zhou Xian narrowed his eyes and he was about to retreat when a powerful force suddenly descended from the sky. Following that, a sword light shattered and Zhou Xian was forced to retreat. A barbarian spirit person stood in front of Zhou Xian. Barbarian spirit race's great elder Man Tian. 15th phase master. Man Tian looked at the nearby Zhou Xian and said, the bones of the last one who didn't give my barbarian spirit race any face have already turned to ashes. At the side, Zhou Xian hurriedly fanned the flames. Grand Elder Man Tian, there is a mysterious force behind this person and it is not simple. Don't be careless. A smile appeared at the corner of Man Tian's mouth. Comparing backgrounds? My barbarian spirit race loves to compare backgrounds the most. Saying this, he opened his right hand and made an inviting gesture. Human, don't say that my spirit beast race is bullying you. Come call someone over. P.S. I went back to my hometown for Chinese New Year. Too many people came to propose marriage. Vexation. My house's doors is about to be trampled open. Chapter 1885. Call for help. The barbarian spirit race had the ability and confidence to do so because their strength was the #1 race in the entire spirit region. Moreover, the barbarian spirit race had an extraordinary power standing behind them, and it was the illusion race. The illusion race was a genuine level 6 civilization. Even though it was only a rank higher than the barbarian spirit race, it was a gap that the barbarian spirit race would never be able to surpass. The difference between a rank 5 and a rank 6 civilization was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. Man Tian gazed at Zhou Xian and smiled. Human, if no one is going to call for help, then I will. As soon as he finished speaking, the space in the surroundings suddenly trembled. In the next moment, numerous terrifying auras swept out from the surroundings, and then over 100 extraordinary experts appeared here. There were actually 5 at the 15th rank amongst them. Moreover, there were a total of 49 at the 14th rank, and the weakest amongst the rest was at the 13th rank. Zhou Yan's face fell when he saw this lineup. The barbarian spirit race had mobilized such a large force, so they were obviously determined to obtain the divine treasure in Zhou Xian's possession. Meanwhile, Man Tian suddenly glanced at the surroundings and smiled. Everyone, this person killed members of my barbarian spirit race, so my barbarian spirit race is absolutely irreconcilable with him. This is a personal enmity between my barbarian spirit race and him, so I hope that all of you won't interfere. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from the shadows. If your barbarian spirit race wants to take that human sword for yourself, then just say it. Why be so hypocritical? Man Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly turned around and punched. Bang! Space suddenly collapsed over 1 kilometer away, and then an afterimage retreated explosively for 5,000 kilometers. Man Tian glanced at the afterimage and smiled. I said that because I wanted to give you some face. Since you don't want to give me face, then don't blame my barbarian spirit race. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts from the barbarian spirit race vanished on the spot, and the afterimage in the distance was instantly obliterated. The experts in the surroundings were shocked when they witnessed this scene. The barbarian spirit race was really overbearing. However, no one dared to resist. The strength of a single barbarian spirit race wasn't invincible. What they truly feared was the illusion race that stood behind the barbarian spirit race. Back then, the barbarian spirit tribe wasn't that strong. The reason they suddenly rose was because a woman from the barbarian spirit tribe married into the illusory tribe. From then on, the barbarian spirit race's status rose with the tide, and no force in the entire spirit realm dared to not give them face. As time passed, the barbarian spirit race also grew stronger and stronger. Of course, it also grew more and more domineering. However, none of the forces dared to provoke them. In the dark, some experts had already retreated. They were also interested in the sword in Zhou Xian's hand. Not only could it ignore the pressure of time and space and the abyss of time and space, it could also enter the seventh layer of time and space. Even the entire spirit realm did not have such a divine item. However, with the barbarian spirit tribe present, they knew that they had no hope at all. A smile appeared on Man Tian's face when he saw the experts hiding in the surroundings scatter. He looked at Zhou Xian, who was not far away. Zhou Xian immediately said, "Great Elder Man Tian, from now on, my spirit beast race will follow the lead of the barbarian spirit race." Man Tian was very satisfied and slightly nodded. The patriarch has already said that although your spirit beast race has submitted to my barbarian spirit race, my barbarian spirit race will not interfere in your spirit beast race's matters. However, if my barbarian spirit race has any orders in the future, Zhou Xian quickly said, my spirit beast race will definitely obey. Man Tian smiled. Very good. After saying that, he turned his head and looked at Zhou Xian, who was not far away. Human, I know that you were healing a moment ago. Have you healed your injuries? Zhou Xian smiled and said, I'm fine. Man Tian smiled and said, don't say that my barbarian spirit race is bullying you. You can call for more people, as many as you want. However, Zhou Xian shook his head. No need. After saying that, he suddenly disappeared. Space-time folding. In the distance, Man Tian slightly narrowed his eyes and raised his arm to block. Boom. Man Tian retreated several thousand feet, and just as he stopped, Zhou Xian appeared in front of him once again. In an instant, a wave of sword light directly submerged him. Square-inch sword domain. Chi-chi-chi-chi-chi. Tearing sounds resounded ceaselessly from within the wave of sword light. Right at that moment, a powerful force suddenly erupted from within the wave of sword light. The sword light shattered and a figure retreated repeatedly. It was Man Tian. When Man Tian stopped, the expressions of all the experts became solemn. Because at this moment, Man Tian's entire body was covered in dense sword scars. It was as if he had been dismembered, and it was extremely shocking. In the distance, Zhou Xian stared fixedly at the distant Zhou Xian, and the depths of his eyes were solemn. At that moment, he suddenly discovered that Zhou Xian's sword wasn't only powerful, but his sword skills were also terrifying. Who was this human? The solemn expression in Zhou Xian's eyes gradually turned into worry. In front of Zhou Xian, Man Tian glanced at his own body, and in the next moment his expression became ferocious. He looked at Zhou Xian and said, Human, you have successfully angered me. At that moment, a sword suddenly slashed down and Man Tian's voice came to an abrupt stop. Man Tian raised his arm to block. Bang! The sword light shattered and Man Tian was blasted 3 kilometers back. As soon as he stopped, his right arm split open and blood sprayed out. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian had suddenly vanished on the spot. Man Tian was shocked and he swiftly raised his left hand to block before spinning it. Cage. As soon as his voice resounded, Zhou Xian suddenly stopped because the area of spacetime he was in had become a spacetime cage. Meanwhile, Man Tian said, Fall. As soon as he finished speaking, the spacetime where Zhou Xian was in had suddenly transformed into an abyss, and Zhou Xian fell rapidly. A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Man Tian's mouth, but it quickly froze because Zhou Xian had suddenly returned to reality. Man Tian's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this, and he seemed to have thought of something. His gaze descended onto the green profound sword in Zhou Xian's hand. It's your sword. Zhou Xian didn't waste his breath and he just raised his hand and slashed. A strand of sword light tore through the battlefield. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through Man Tian's eyes. He took a step forward and punched out with his left hand. The powerful force contained within his fist directly tore the space in front of him apart, and Zhou Xian's sword light was instantly destroyed. But right at this moment, Zhou Xian suddenly appeared above Man Tian and slashed with his sword, drawing the sword to decide life and death. The powerful force of this sword slash instantly tore space apart. Man Tian's pupils constricted. He didn't dare to take Zhou Xian's sword head-on, because Zhou Xian's sword could break through his defenses. The instant Zhou Xian's sword descended, Man Tian's figure trembled. Space folded and he directly appeared 3 kilometers away. He had just stopped when a flying sword slashed at him. Speed was extremely fast, as this was also a spatial folding technique. Man Tian was greatly alarmed. At this moment he had nowhere to dodge and could only face it head-on. He didn't have time to think and he used his left hand to block. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, the swords on Man Tian's left hand shattered, and he retreated explosively. In the distance Zhou Xian was about to attack again, but right at this moment his expression suddenly changed and he swiftly turned around. At this moment, a fist smashed towards him like a tsunami. Zhou Xian hurriedly withdrew his sword to defend himself. Rumble. Along with an explosion, the space where Zhou Xian was instantly transformed into a pitch-black spacetime black hole. At the instant that Zhou Xian fell into the spacetime black hole, the profound azure sword in his hand trembled violently and hurriedly brought him out of the spacetime black hole. After coming out, Zhou Xian turned around and saw a man from the barbarian spirit tribe standing not too far away. He wore an embroidered robe, had a tall figure and had long hair that draped over his shoulders. He emanated an extremely terrifying pressure. Man Qing, the current patriarch of the barbarian spirit tribe. Man Qing sized up Zhou Xian, and then his gaze descended onto the profound azure sword in his hand. Good sword. Meanwhile, Man Tian walked over to Man Qing's side. Patriarch. Man Qing looked at Zhou Xian and said with a smile, "You possess such strength at such a young age, so I presume you're not an ordinary person. Since you're not an ordinary person, then you should know of my barbarian spirit tribe. Since you know of my barbarian spirit tribe, why do you dare to become enemies with my barbarian spirit tribe?" Zhou Xian smiled and said, "It seems that your barbarian spirit tribe wants to become enemies with me, right?" Man Qing shook his head. "My barbarian spirit tribe wants to kill you because it thinks highly of you. What qualifications do you have to become enemies with my barbarian spirit tribe?" Zhou Xian gave him a thumbs up. "Amazing." Man Qing smiled and said, "No matter who you are or where you came from, today I will shatter your body, imprison your soul, and let you be burned by spirit flames for eternity. I want the world to understand that those who offend my barbarian spirit tribe can only beg for death." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, Zhou Xian's pupils constricted, and he swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Rumble. Zhou Xian was directly sent flying several thousand feet away, but before he could stop, several afterimages suddenly swept over. Man Tian and the other 15th stage barbarian spirit tribe experts also attacked. Zhou Xian quickly displayed his invincible sword domain. Bang! As soon as the invincible sword domain appeared, it collapsed and his whole body was directly thrown into the spacetime abyss. Just as he escaped from the spacetime abyss, a fist mark suddenly attacked him. Man Qing. Zhou Xian raised his sword horizontally to block it. Bang! The profound cyan sword in Zhou Xian's hand violently trembled and he rapidly retreated. At this time, 4 15th stage barbarian spirit tribe experts suddenly rushed towards him from all directions, not giving him a chance to catch his breath. The retreating Zhou Xian's eyes flashed with hostility, and he suddenly slashed forward with his sword. Square-inch sword domain. Bang! A wave of sword light instantly submerged him and the 4 15th stage barbarian spirit tribe experts. There was a moment of silence. Bang! The sword light shattered and a figure flew out. It was Zhou Xian. When Zhou Xian came to a stop, his left arm had already disappeared. Not only that, but his entire body was covered in cracks and bones could be seen in many places. He was in an extremely miserable state. In the distance, Man Qing looked at Zhou Xian and said with a smile, "Come, call him over." Right at this moment, the space above Man Qing suddenly trembled violently. Man Qing frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene. Someone's really coming? It didn't take long for that space to turn into a vortex, and a middle-aged man walked out from within the vortex. When he saw who it was, Man Qing burst into laughter. "Ha! Human, your men aren't here but mine are." The middle-aged man in front of him was the patriarch of the illusory tribe. After the illusion tribe leader came out, he scanned the surroundings. Very quickly, his gaze landed on Zhou Xian. When he saw Zhou Xian's appearance, the illusion tribe leader's legs softened and he almost knelt down. Chapter 1886. At this moment, the patriarch of the illusion race was astounded to the extreme. Why is young Master Yi in such a miserable state? Meanwhile, Man Qing walked over to the patriarch and bowed respectfully. Patriarch Huan Ming, what are you doing here? The illusion race. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the surroundings was stunned. The patriarch of the illusion race? A grade 6 civilization? Huan Ming paid no attention to Man Qing, and he just suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed and he was about to attack. Meanwhile, Huan Ming hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. He's on my side." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Man Qing and Man Tian were petrified on the spot. On my side? What's going on? Yi Xian gazed at Huan Ming and frowned. On your side. Meanwhile, Man Qing suddenly appeared in front of Huan Ming, and he hurriedly said, "Patriarch Huan Ming, do you know this human?" Huan Ming suddenly turned around and slapped him. Bang! Man Qing didn't even have time to react before his body was blasted into pieces. Everyone here was speechless. Huan Ming glanced coldly at Man Qing, who was slightly stunned. What human? He's called Young Master Yi. Young Master Yi. At this moment, Man Qing's mind had gone blank, and the faces of the other experts of the barbarian spirit race had turned ghastly pale. As for Zhou Xian, his figure had even started to tremble. Huan Ming bowed slightly to Yi Xian and spoke in a trembling voice. "Young Master Yi, what happened?" Yi Xian spoke solemnly. "Are you sure you didn't mistake me for someone else?" Huan Ming hesitated for a moment and then he withdrew a portrait. The person in the portrait was Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly when he saw the portrait. "What's this?" Huan Ming hurriedly said, "A senior gave it to me. It's that senior in a plain dress." Tinka. Yi Xian was stunned. Huan Ming knew that he wasn't mistaken when he saw the expression on Yi Xian's face. Yi Xian suddenly glanced at Man Qing. "The barbarian spirit race is a subordinate race of your illusion race?" Huan Ming nodded. "Yes. One of our clan's elders has formed a marriage alliance with the barbarian spirit tribe." As he said that, he seemed to have thought of something and his pupils suddenly shrank. "Young Master Yi, were they the ones who attacked you?" Yi Xian nodded. "They ganged up on me. You even wanted to exterminate my entire clan." Huan Ming was stunned and then he hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, my illusory race isn't related to the barbarian spirit race at all. It has nothing to do with me." Yi Xian was speechless. The expressions of Man Qing and the others became unsightly to the extreme when they heard Huan Ming. Of course they were terrified to the extreme as well. Who was this human in front of him? How could the patriarch of the illusion race be so humble? On the other side, Zhou Xian was about to faint. In front of Huan Ming, Yi Xian's body suddenly twitched. Huan Ming's expression changed drastically when he saw this and he hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, what's wrong?" Yi Xian rolled his eyes. I feel like I'm going to die. Senior, if I die, please help me tell my younger sister and ask her to avenge me." Huan Ming's face instantly turned pale. "If young Master Yi really dies here, then I don't even dare to think about it." Huan Ming swiftly turned his head. "Guards." As soon as he finished speaking, the sky suddenly darkened, and then countless experts walked out from the starry sky. The experts of the illusion race. Powerful pressure smashed down from the starry sky, and it caused the entire world to tremble. The expressions of all the experts here became extremely solemn when they witnessed this scene. Has the illusion race mobilized its entire race? Huan Ming's expression became ferocious. "Capture all the members of the barbarian spirit race and bring them here." The experts of the illusion race vanished on the spot when they heard Huan Ming. On the other hand, Man Qing's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly said, "Patriarch Huan Ming, please give Man Lin face and let me." Huan Ming suddenly roared furiously, "Shut up. My illusion race isn't related to your barbarian spirit race at all." Man Qing was speechless. Huan Ming turned around to gaze at Yi Xian, who was on the verge of death, and then he hurriedly withdrew a thumb-sized medicinal pill and spoke in a trembling voice, "Young Master Yi, your injuries aren't very severe. You won't die. Come, quickly take this medicine." Yi Xian glanced at Man Qing and then he spoke in a timid voice, I'm afraid." Man Qing was speechless. Huan Ming glanced coldly at Man Qing and the latter hurriedly said, "Patriarch Huan Ming." Huan Ming suddenly clenched his fist. Man Qing's soul felt like an invisible hand had clamped down on his throat, and he couldn't speak any longer. Huan Ming gazed coldly at Man Qing. "I'll repeat myself once more. My illusion race isn't related to your barbarian spirit race at all. Man Qing was speechless. Meanwhile, the experts of the illusion race had arrived here, and all the members of the beast spirit race had been captured here. There were tens of thousands of them. They weren't able to resist at all. Man Tian spoke in a trembling voice when he witnessed this scene. Patriarch Huan Ming, we shouldn't harm our clansmen. I wonder if, when he spoke up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and he immediately looked at Yi Xian and bowed deeply. Young Master Yi, this is the fault of my barbarian spirit race. Please show mercy. Yi Xian suddenly said, I'm feeling dizzy. I'm going to rest for a while. As he spoke, he slowly closed his eyes. Man Tian's face instantly turned pale. Meanwhile, Huan Ming suddenly said, behead them all. As soon as he finished speaking, the heads of the tens of thousands of experts of the barbarian spirit race fell to the ground before Man Tian could even react, and blood instantly dyed the ground red. Man Tian slumped to the ground when he witnessed this scene. The beast spirit race was gone. It was gone just like that. Man Qing, who hadn't died completely, was ashen and his entire soul was trembling. The once glorious barbarian spirit race was gone just like that. Even though their heads had been chopped off, their souls were still there. Right when the experts of the illusion race were about to destroy the souls of the barbarian spirit race's experts, the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly flew out, and then it started to madly absorb the souls of the barbarian spirit race's experts. The experts of the illusion race gazed at Huan Ming when they witnessed this scene. Huan Ming glanced at the green profound sword and then he waved his hand. All the experts of the illusion race immediately moved aside. At this moment, Zhou Xian suddenly ran in front of Yi Xian. He knelt down and said in a trembling voice, Young Master Yi, my spirit beast race has eyes but failed to see. Please be magnanimous and let my spirit beast race off. Yi Xian smiled and said, You're begging the wrong person. You should be begging the patriarch of the illusion race. Zhou Xian hurriedly shook his head. Young Master Yi, my beast spirit race is willing to submit to you. So long as you're willing to show mercy, my beast spirit race is willing to do anything. Yi Xian remained silent. Zhou Xian was delighted when he saw Yi Xian remain silent, and he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, from this moment onward, my beast spirit race is willing to follow you. Yi Xian suddenly shook his head. I'm feeling a little dizzy. I need to rest. Zhou Yan's face instantly turned ghastly pale. Meanwhile, Huan Ming suddenly said, Slash. As soon as he finished speaking, countless experts of the illusion race charged into the beast spirit world below. In the next moment, numerous bloody heads shot into the sky. They weren't able to resist at all. Meanwhile, Zhou Yan suddenly roared furiously, Ancestor summon. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of white light suddenly shot into the sky from within the beast spirit world. Meanwhile, Huan Ming suddenly pressed his right hand down. Bang! The ray of white light exploded into pieces, and the souls of the beast spirit race's ancestors within it were instantly crushed. Yi Xian's expression instantly became solemn when he witnessed this scene. The strength of the illusion race's patriarch wasn't just ordinary. Meanwhile, the green profound sword suddenly flew into the beast spirit world, and then it madly absorbed the souls of the beast spirit race's experts. Right at this moment, Shou Qing suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. Who exactly are you? Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword directly entered the space between Shou Qing's brows and absorbed his soul. After that, the green profound sword entered the space between Man Tian's brows. Bang! Man Tian was instantly absorbed. Huan Ming glanced at the green profound sword and then he said, Young Master Yi, was this sword forged by that senior? Yi Xian nodded. Huan Ming's expression became solemn when he saw this. No wonder. Yi Xian suddenly said, Senior, I need to recuperate. As he spoke, he entered the shout, Recuperate. His body had almost been shattered by the group attack just now, and he was in an extraordinarily miserable state. After Yi Xian entered the Xiaotao, Huan Ming glanced coldly at the surroundings and said, Investigate and see if young Master Yi has any other enemies. Yes. Some of the experts of the illusion race bowed slightly and left. Huan Ming closed his eyes slowly. At this moment he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, young Master Yi is fine. Otherwise he really didn't dare to imagine the consequences. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared here. At this moment Yi Xian's injuries had completely healed. A wisp of surprise flashed through Huan Ming's eyes when he saw that Yi Xian's injuries had completely healed. That was too swift. Yi Xian cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Senior." Huan Ming hurriedly shook his head. "It's nothing." If it wasn't for Senior Su Kun, then the old man would have probably been unable to take another step forward in his cultivation. "Tinka." Yi Xian spoke solemnly. "Where's Qing'er now?" Huan Ming shook his head and laughed bitterly. "I don't know. That day she only passed by the illusory Nether tribe and then left. As for where she went, I don't dare to ask." Yi Xian was speechless. Huan Ming continued, "Young Master Yi, the matter here has come to an end. Why don't you come with me to the illusion race?" Yi Xian was about to speak when the space in the distance suddenly trembled. Huan Ming frowned slightly and then he turned around. A man had suddenly walked out from that expansive space. The man had a triangular head and a strange blood-red talisman mark on the center of his forehead. It wasn't his main body, it was just a shadow. It was the ancestor of the spirit beast race, Ye Yao. He was the one who'd led the spirit beast race into a grade 5 civilization. Ye Yao gazed at Huan Ming and then his gaze descended onto Yi Xian. "My spirit beast race was annihilated because of you." Yi Xian was about to speak when Huan Ming suddenly said, "My illusion race was annihilated." Ye Yao gazed at Huan Ming, a rank 17 expert. Huan Ming smiled. "You were able to notice that I'm at the rank 17. Looks like you're not simple." Ye Yao suddenly smiled. "Is rank 17 very strong?" Huan Ming smiled slightly. "To some people it's not strong, but to you, forgive me for being blunt, but do you dare to show your true body?" Ye Yao stared at Yi Xian. "The hatred of the extermination of my clan is absolutely irreconcilable." As he spoke, his body gradually became illusory. P.S. Today I'm going to kill a pig and eat pig rice. Haha. Chapter 1887. Once Ye Yao vanished, Huan Ming suddenly said, "Send my order to search for him throughout the universe." An old man behind Huan Ming bowed slightly. "Understood." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Huan Ming turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this place is probably no longer safe. Come with me to the illusion race." Yi Xian fell silent for a short while before he said, "Can you give me 3 days of time?" Huan Ming nodded. "Of course." Yi Xian turned around and left. He had to give them some instructions. Once Yi Xian left, Huan Ming suddenly turned around. "Who is it?" Space trembled slightly in the distance, and then a woman appeared before the experts of the illusion race. If Yi Xian was here, he would definitely be pleasantly surprised, because it was none other than Moon Yanyan. Huan Ming gazed at Moon Yanyan with a trace of vigilance in his eyes. He couldn't see through this woman. Huan Ming spoke solemnly. "Who are you?" Moon Yanyan smiled. "I'm his older sister." Huan Ming was slightly stunned. "Older sister?" The corners of Moon Yanyan's mouth curled up slightly. "Yes." Huan Ming hurriedly cupped his fists. "May I know what orders you have for me?" Moon Yanyan asked. "Does your illusion race have any opponents?" Huan Ming spoke solemnly. "We do." Moon Yanyan said, "Go on." Huan Ming glanced at Moon Yanyan. Even though he didn't know what she meant, he still hurriedly said, "My illusion race is located in the ancient exalted world, and there are 3 extraordinary powers there. One of them is my illusion race, the other is the ancient exalted clan and the ancient desolate race. My illusion race and the ancient desolate race are mortal enemies." Moon Yanyan nodded slightly. "Then the ancestor of the spirit beast race, Ye Yao, should be with the ancient desolate race." Huan Ming frowned slightly. "Why?" Moon Yanyan smiled. "He knows that you've reached the 17th rank and he dares to say that the enmity between us is irreconcilable. That's because he has the confidence to resist your illusion race." Ming Huan said solemnly, "It's impossible for someone from the lower realms to reach the great heaven ancient world." Moon Yanyan smiled and said, "That woman in the plain dress is also from the lower realm." Huan Ming's pupils constricted abruptly when he heard this. After a short moment he bowed slightly. "I understand." Moon Yanyan continued. "Moreover, since he dared to speak so harshly in front of you, it means that the ancient desolate tribe might take action." Huan Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. He was just about to speak when the space before him suddenly became illusory. In the next moment, a figure appeared in front of him. The Illusion Clan. The illusory race member's face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear. Clan leader, the ancient desolate race ambushed our illusory race. Our illusory race is gone. Huan Ming's expression instantly became ferocious when he heard this. The primordial clan. With that he turned. All clansmen heed my command. Return to Grand Luo immediately. Moon Yanyan suddenly said, wait. Huan Ming looked at Moon Yanyan. Moon Yanyan said, if you return now your entire army will be wiped out. Huan Ming said solemnly, Miss, what do you mean? Moon Yanyan looked at Huan Ming. The ancient desolate race and your illusory race should be on par in strength, so why did they dare to attack? You should know that if they fought you to the death, who would benefit from it? The ancient exalted clan, of course. There's no way they wouldn't understand this. But they still attacked us. Huan Ming's expression was a little unsightly. The ancient exalted clan joined forces with them. Moon Yanyan nodded. That's right. Huan Ming clenched his fists. Why would they join forces? Moon Yanyan said, there are only two reasons. The first is the benefits. Joining forces to destroy your illusory race will bring you benefits. Please continue to the next page. The second is the threat. Even your illusory race poses a threat to them. Huan Ming's expression was dark. It looks like they've already found out about my breakthrough. Moon Yanyan nodded. You can't bring your clansmen back to the ancient exalted world right now because they've definitely made thorough preparations. If you return now, you'll be walking right into their trap. Huan Ming fell silent for a moment, then turned to Moon Yanyan and bowed slightly. Please advise me, miss. Moon Yanyan smiled. I have a very good idea. Huan Ming bowed again. Please speak, miss. Moon Yanyan gently combed her disheveled hair behind her ear. Let me analyze it for you. You brought most of the experts of your race to receive that little fellow, so they must be extremely curious. If I'm not wrong, they must be doing everything in their power to investigate this little fellow's origins. But they won't be able to find anything. They'll definitely guess that if a human could make your illusory race send their entire race to receive him, how could he be an ordinary person? Coupled with the fact that you've just broken through, I would definitely guess that this human might be from a level 7 civilization if I were them. As she spoke, she gazed at Huan Ming. Their target seems to be you, but it's actually that little fellow. Huan Ming laughed bitterly when he heard this. Moon Yanyan said, find a way to spread the news that he's from a level 7 civilization. However, he was taken away by someone and he even brought many divine objects with him. As she spoke, she opened her palm and 3 portraits appeared in front of Huan Ming. They were the portraits of the woman in a plain dress, the man in green and the swordsman. Moon Yanyan smiled. The 3 of them and Zhou Xian escaped from a level 7 civilization, and they even brought some divine objects with them. Huan Ming was stunned and then he said, you're asking them to look for them? Moon Yanyan nodded. They will. Huan Ming hesitated for a moment before he said, is that all right? Moon Yanyan smiled. It's fine. Don't worry and do it. Leave everything to that little fellow. Huan Ming was speechless. Moon Yanyan added, also, you have to let them know that the 3 of them were heavily injured when they escaped from a level 7 civilization, and they've gone into hiding now. Huan Ming glanced at Moon Yanyan. Miss, this, actually he wanted to ask if this was too sinister. He didn't know how strong the man in green and the swordsman were, but he knew how strong the woman in a plain dress was. If the ancient Daoist clan and the ancient desolate clan found her, wouldn't that be like entering the toilet with a lantern? It was too sinister. Of course he didn't dislike it at all. Moon Yanyan smiled. There's one more thing that you absolutely must remember. You have to let them understand that you're not looking for that little fellow to protect him, but to find those 3 people through him and obtain the divine objects from a level 7 civilization. Only then will your illusory race be able to escape from this vortex. Huan Ming bowed respectfully. Understood. Moon Yanyan nodded, turned around and left. Huan Ming suddenly asked, Miss, are they really from a level 7 civilization? Moon Yanyan stopped in her tracks and smiled. What do you think? Huan Ming said solemnly, did I underestimate them a little? Moon Yanyan nodded. Yes, you did. With that she turned around and disappeared into the starry sky. Huan Ming frowned slightly. I underestimated them a little. Could they be from a level 8 civilization? After a while he turned around and left. The entrance to the ancient Daoist clan was currently at the entrance. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Countless experts had already gathered here. Among them, there were 2 17th stage experts, 23 16th stage experts, and several hundred 15th stage experts. These experts were from the ancient Daoist clan and the desolate ancient sect. Leading them was the patriarch of the ancient Daoist clan, Daoist Tian, and desolate Xing. Daoist Tian looked into the distance and smiled. Brother Xing, do you think this Huan Ming would suddenly bring his entire clan to find a human? This is very strange. Desolate Xing smiled. That human is not simple. Daoist Tendo said, I've already sent someone to investigate. Desolate Xing was about to speak when an expert of the ancient Daoist clan appeared before Daoist Tian, and he said solemnly, Patriarch, according to the latest news, that human is from a level 7 civilization. A level 7 civilization. The expressions of all the experts changed when they heard this. Daoist Tian narrowed his eyes. A level 7 civilization? The exalted elder nodded. According to our men's reports, that human and 3 others escaped from a level 7 civilization, and the other 3 are heavily injured. The reason why Huan Ming brought so many of his clansmen to find that human Zhou Xian was mainly because he wanted to find those 3 injured humans through Zhou Xian, because those 3 humans brought back many divine artifacts from a level 7 civilization. Divine artifacts? Daoist Tian sneered. No wonder Huan Ming didn't just break through, he even brought all the experts of his clan to find that human. So it was for the divine artifacts from a level 7 civilization. Desolate Xing suddenly asked, those 3 humans are heavily injured. The expert of the ancient Daoist clan nodded. Yes. Desolate Xing and Daoist Tian exchanged glances, and then Desolate Xing said solemnly, they escaped from a level 7 civilization. In other words, they definitely know about level 7 civilizations and they have divine artifacts. At this moment, one of the experts suddenly said, according to my clansman, that human Zhou Xian has a divine sword. The one who spoke was the ancestor of the spirit beast clan Yao. Desolate Xing turned to look at Yao. Tell me about that sword. Yao said solemnly, that human Zhou Xian is only a level 10 expert, but he can use that sword to kill a level 15 expert. Moreover, he can use that sword to ignore the pressure of spacetime in the spacetime abyss. He can even use that sword to enter the 7th layer of spacetime and ignore the spacetime black hole there. Daoist Tian frowned slightly. He can use that sword to kill a level 15 expert? Yao nodded. Yes. Daoist Tian said solemnly, it seems like he really is from a level 7 civilization. Meanwhile, Desolate Xing spoke abruptly, those 3 humans. When he spoke up to this point, he exchanged glances with Daoist Tian, and then he said solemnly, we can't allow them to fall into the hands of the illusion race. As he spoke, he turned to look at the expert from the exalted clan. Do you have portraits of them? The expert from the exalted clan nodded. Yes. Because the illusion race has sent people to search for them. As he spoke, he waved his right hand lightly and then 3 portraits appeared before them. Daoist Tian immediately said, send my order. Gather the strength of the entire clan to search for them. Desolate Xing hurriedly said as well, send my order. Everyone from the ancient Daoist clan is to stop what they're doing and search for them with all our strength. The experts from both clans retreated. On the other hand, Desolate Xing and Daoist Tian became excited. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They had escaped from a level 7 civilization. It was time to change their destiny. End of this chapter. Chapter 1888. In the Xiaota, Zhou Xian stood silently as the space-time overlapped in front of him. Space-time overlapped. Soon he overlapped the first to the 4th space-time. However, he didn't stop there. He continued to overlap. And the 6th spacetime. It was very difficult. Because the 6th spacetime was as dense as the previous few spacetimes combined. Now he wanted to overlap the 6th spacetime with the previous spacetimes. The difficulty was obvious. Most importantly, he didn't use the green profound sword this time. Because the green profound sword was breaking through, he was relying on his own strength. Time passed bit by bit. In front of Zhou Xian, the 6th layer of spacetime began to overlap with the spacetime in front of him. Zhou Xian's face gradually turned pale because the spacetime in front of him began to become unstable. Gradually, Cold sweat appeared on Yi Xian's forehead. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly pressed his right hand down. Bang! The space-time overlapped in front of him. In an instant, an invisible space-time pressure swept out from the space-time in front of him, and the Xiaota trembled violently. At this moment the Xiaota hurriedly said, "Young master, don't do anything rash." Yi Xian waved his right hand lightly, and the space-time in front of him returned to normal. Yi Xian took a deep breath. Although he was only at the 10th stage with this move, he wouldn't feel any pressure even if he fought a 15th stage powerhouse, even without the green profound sword. He didn't completely rely on the green profound sword. The green profound sword was equivalent to a medium for him to communicate with the space-time. Without the green profound sword, he wouldn't be able to escape into the space-time. Now he could enter the 6th space-time even without the green profound sword. Of course, without the green profound sword, he wouldn't be able to ignore the space-time pressure and the space-time abyss. At this moment he actually understood why Qing-Er forged the green profound sword for him. To increase his combat strength? That was definitely one of the reasons. Qing-Er's real purpose was to let him learn from the green profound sword. The green profound sword was his best teacher. A smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth when he thought of this, and his heart felt warm. The younger sister was definitely the biological younger sister, but the father might not necessarily be the biological father. After a while Yi Xian left Xiaota. He did not attempt to fold and fuse the 7th spacetime because the 7th spacetime was too terrifying. It wasn't something he could control right now. As soon as he left Xiaota, Huan Ming appeared in front of him. Glancing at Yi Xian, Huan Ming said with a smile, "Young Master Yi has become stronger." Yi Xian smiled. "Senior Phantom, let's go to the illusory tribe." Huan Ming hesitated for a moment, then told him about the exalted celestial world. After listening to Huan Ming, Yi Xian fell silent. After a while he looked at Huan Ming and said, "I'm sorry." Huan Ming shook his head. "Young Master Yi, please don't say that. If it wasn't for Senior Suqiong, I'm afraid it would have been difficult for me to break through in this lifetime. To me, I owe her a new lease on life." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "What do you plan to do now, Senior?" Huan Ming hesitated for a moment and said, "Young Master Yi, your older sister gave me some advice." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "My older sister?" Huan Ming nodded. "Your older sister." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Senior, please describe her appearance." Huan Ming opened his palm and the space above his palm suddenly warped. It didn't take long for the image of a woman to appear above his palm. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw the woman. "Sister Nian. Sister Nian is actually here." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Senior, where is she now? Please continue to the next page." Huan Ming smiled bitterly. "I don't know." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Sister Nian is really something. Since she's here, why didn't she see me?" He naturally hadn't forgotten this younger sister of his. However, he hadn't heard any news about them in a very, very long time. However, he believed that the two of them definitely wouldn't be doing too badly. What a joke. One of them was Sister Nian, who even Qing-Er had taken a liking to, and the other was the clone of the first Qing-Er. How could they possibly be doing badly? Huan Ming told Yi Xian about Nian Nian's plan. Yi Xian was speechless when he heard that. Why is Sister Nian still so devious? She's asking the ancient exalted clan and the desolate antiquity sect to search for Qing-Er, Dad and Big Brother? That's too devious. Huan Ming suddenly asked, "Young Master Yi, will Senior Su Qiong and the others get angry if I do that?" Yi Xian smiled. "They won't." Huan Ming instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Xian gazed at Huan Ming. "Senior, have they really gone to search for them?" Huan Ming nodded. "According to my people, they've started searching with all their might for Senior Su Qiong and the others. I just don't know if they've found them yet." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he seemed to have thought of something and his expression suddenly changed. "This isn't good. If they can't find them, then they'll definitely come looking for me." Huan Ming's expression changed slightly as well. That seems to be the case. Yi Xian was about to speak when an expert from the illusion race suddenly appeared in front of him. The expert bowed slightly and said, "Patriarch Young Master Yi, the patriarch of the ancient exalted clan and the master of the desolate antiquity sect are rushing over here." Yi Xian's face fell when he had heard that. Huan Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. "They're rushing over here?" The expert nodded. "Yes." Huan Ming turned to look at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, you're probably their target. We'll escort you away. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Where to? Huan Ming fell silent. Where to? There was nowhere else to go. Huan Ming spoke solemnly. Young Master Yi, you leave first. We'll stop them. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Can your illusion race fight too on their own? Huan Ming was about to speak when Yi Xian smiled. I'm their target. They'll definitely not let you go if I leave. He looked up into the sky as he spoke. I'll wait for them. Huan Ming frowned slightly. Wait for them? Yi Xian smiled. I'll wait for them. Huan Ming was slightly puzzled. Young Master Yi. Suddenly the starry sky in the distance warped, and then a terrifying aura swept over. They're here. A cold light flashed through Huan Ming's eyes. Men. Countless experts of the illusion race appeared behind him as soon as he spoke. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Senior Huan Ming, tell your clansmen not to attack. Huan Ming glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. If a fight really broke out, he definitely wouldn't sit back and watch. In any case, he was determined to cling to Yi Xian. No one could stop him. At this moment, the space above their heads suddenly split open and then two people walked out. It was the sect master of the ancient Desolation sect, Huanggu Xing, and the patriarch of the ancient exalted clan, Daoist. Daoist's gaze immediately fell on Yi Xian. You must be young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Yes. Daoist stared at Yi Xian. You're waiting for us? This chapter is not over. Please continue. Yi Xian nodded. Daoist looked at Yi Xian, a trace of wariness rising in his heart. This human might be from a level 7 civilization. He had never seen a level 7 civilization, but he knew that someone from such a civilization was definitely not simple. At this moment, Huanggu Xing suddenly smiled. Young Master Yi, you know the purpose of our trip, right? Yi Xian nodded. I know. You want to find those 3 people through me, right? Huanggu Xing looked at Yi Xian. Will young Master Yi help us? Yi Xian looked at Huanggu Xing and smiled. If I don't help, what will you do? Huanggu Xing smiled. What do you think we will do, young Master Yi? Yi Xian fell silent. Daoist suddenly said, Young Master Yi, we don't want to use force, but we hope that young Master Yi will cooperate with us. As long as young Master Yi is willing to cooperate, we won't hurt young Master Yi. Yi Xian said solemnly, Forgive me for being blunt, but you might not be a match for those 3. He paused for a moment before he continued. Even though they're heavily injured and their strength has been suppressed, they're still not people that ordinary people can deal with. Heavily injured. Their strength has been suppressed. Daoist and Huanggu Xing exchanged glances, and a wisp of excitement flashed through their eyes. Meanwhile, Daoist said, Young Master Yi, you said they're heavily injured. Can you tell me in detail? Yi Xian said solemnly, They're like me. They escaped, and they were heavily injured by an extraordinary force from above because they stole some divine artifacts from that extraordinary force. Huanggu Xing suddenly asked, What divine artifacts? Yi Xian glanced at Huanggu Xing and then he said, I don't know anything else, but I do know that the man in the green robe has a super divine item in his possession. That divine item can directly wipe out the 8th layer of spacetime. Not only that, it can also change the nature of life. Daoist's eyes narrowed slightly. The essence of life? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Life is above spacetime. As he spoke, he glanced at Daoist and said, I presume that you've come into contact with the life Dao as well. However, you probably don't know much about it. Daoist nodded. I really don't. Yi Xian said, That man has some extraordinary divine artifacts in his possession. For example, he has a saint door. If one enters it, then one can reconstruct one's saint physique. Once one attains the saint physique, then one can surpass the spacetime Dao and disregard all spatial pressure, abysses and black holes. The expressions of the experts from Daoist became solemn when they heard this. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian said again, That azure-robed man is badly injured. Daoist gazed at Yi Xian. How severe are his injuries? Yi Xian fell silent for a short moment before he said, His current strength isn't even 30% of his peak strength. Those divine artifacts in his possession can't be utilized at all. Huanggu Xing said abruptly, How can we believe you? Yi Xian glanced at Huanggu Xing and then he opened his palm. The green profound sword flew over to Daoist and said, Take a look at this sword. Daoist glanced at the sword, and then his expression instantly became solemn. This. Yi Xian gazed at Daoist and said, that green-clothed man was struck down when he fled, and then I took advantage of him. The divine artifacts in his possession are only of the lowest quality. He has at least 100 extraordinary divine artifacts in his possession. Any one of them can completely change one's fate. He's extremely weak right now, so it's the best time to kill him. Once he recovers. All of you understand. He didn't continue speaking at this point. End of this chapter. Chapter 1889. Heavily injured. Daoist and Huanggu Xing glanced at each other when they heard Yi Xian, and then they didn't hesitate to make their decision. It was an extremely rare opportunity. It was worth it. Right at this moment, the ancestor of the spirit beasts, Ye Yao, suddenly said, I think there's something fishy about this. Daoist and Huanggu Xing looked at Ye Yao, and the latter looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, why do I feel like you're setting a trap for us? You're asking us to look for that man in green clothes on purpose? Daoist and Huanggu Xing looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian smiled. To tell you the truth, I want to work together with all of you because I want to obtain the divine treasures in that man's possession. However, I'm very clearly aware that my strength alone isn't enough, so I'm willing to work together with all of you. Ye Yao stared fixedly at Yi Xian. There are 3 suspicious points. Firstly, according to my knowledge, the human race was created by the God Clan, and the God Clan is only a level 3 civilization. However, you said that those 3 people are from a level 7 civilization. This doesn't make sense. Secondly, you said that the strength of those 3 people was suppressed when they came to this universe. I'd like to ask how they were suppressed. How were they suppressed? Thirdly, young Master Yi from a level 7 civilization, why are you so weak? You're only at level 10? Is that reasonable? The All-Heaven Domain and Primordial Xing frowned when they heard Ye Yao. At this moment their minds were much clearer. All the experts here looked at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian's explanation. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. How laughable. How truly laughable. An ant actually used your knowledge to judge a level 7 civilization. Don't you think it's laughable? As he spoke, he issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword in Daoist's hand flew over to Ye Yao. Come take a look at this sword and then please explain the space-time Dao contained within it. Yi Yao glanced at the green profound sword in front of him, and his expression gradually became heavy without him realizing it. With another thought, Yi Xian sent the green profound sword directly into the 7th layer of space-time. Not only that, but he himself also followed the green profound sword into the 7th layer of space-time. All the experts in the surroundings revealed solemn expressions when they witnessed this scene. A 10th phase expert entering the 7th layer of space-time? What kind of joke was this? At this time, Yi Xian suddenly took the initiative to enter the space-time abyss of the 7th space-time. After entering the space-time abyss, nothing happened to Yi Xian. The expressions of the members of the Ancient Desolate Clan and Ancient Exalted Clan became slightly unsightly when they saw this. This fellow could ignore the abyss of space and time. Ye Yao's expression turned extremely solemn. Because the current him couldn't even enter the 7th layer of space-time, let alone the space-time abyss within it. At this moment Yi Xian returned. He looked at Ye Yao and smiled. Sir, can you explain why I'm immune to the space-time abyss? Ye Yao's expression was slightly ugly. Meanwhile, the All-Heaven expert said abruptly, Young Master Yi is willing to work together with us? Yi Xian gazed at the All-Heaven expert. I have a condition. The All-Heaven expert gazed at Yi Xian. What is it? Yi Xian smiled. That green-clothed man has a white little fellow with him. I want that little fellow. Xiaotao was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, the Desolate Clan Xing suddenly asked, What's that? A spirit pet? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Sort of. The Desolate Clan Xing gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Meanwhile, the All-Heaven expert spoke abruptly, I agree. Yi Xian gazed at the All-Heaven expert. You have to swear. Not only did the All-Heaven expert not get angry, he smiled instead. Because the more Yi Xian acted like this, the more it proved that he wanted to help them find the green-clothed man. The All-Heaven Tendo said, I swear that if I kill that green-clothed man, then the spirit pet in his possession will belong to you. Yi Xian nodded. It's a pleasure working with you. The All-Heaven expert gazed at Yi Xian. It's a pleasure working with you. Meanwhile, the Desolate Clan Xing said, Take us to him. Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. Xiao Ta, it's time for you to show off. Xiao Ta spoke in a low voice. Young master, are you really going to lead them to kill master? You have to think it through. It's probably quite difficult for us to kill master with our current strength. Unless we call him Big Sister Tianming. Yi Xian's face darkened. Xiao Ta, who exactly gave you the courage to act so arrogantly? Xiao Ta grunted coldly. Young master, don't look down on me. I was modified by Big Sister Tianming. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn it. So it was Qing who gave you the courage. Yi Xian shook his head. Xiao Ta, can you sense where I am? After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, I can't contact master. Yi Xian frowned. At this time Xiao Ta said, but I have a way to find master. Yi Xian quickly asked, what way? Xiao Ta said, Xiaoling, he can contact Little White. Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. I'm so stupid, I actually forgot about Xiaoling. Xiaoling was in Xiao Ta. Yi Xian quickly contacted Xiaoling. At this time Xiaoling was planting spiritual fruits in Xiao Ta. She loved to do this every day. Yi Xian looked at the all-heaven expert. Wait a moment. With that he entered Xiao. Meanwhile the all-heaven expert frowned when he saw Yi Xian vanish on the spot. Meanwhile Huang Guxing spoke via voice transmission. You can't trust everything he says. The all-heaven expert nodded. Of course. So long as he helps us find that green-clothed man, then. When he spoke up to hear, a cold glow flashed through his eyes. Huang Guxing understood and nodded right away. Once they found that green-clothed man and the others, then Yi Xian would naturally lose his value. Right at this moment Yi Xian appeared here and he gazed at Huang Guxing and the all-heaven expert. Come with me. He paused for a moment and continued, just in case, please bring all the experts of your clans with you. The all-heaven expert nodded, of course. Yi Xian nodded and then he turned around to look at Huan Ming and smiled. Patriarch Huan Ming, we can't continue working together. Huan Ming feigned an unsightly expression. Yi Xian gazed at the all-heaven expert and Huang Guxing. Come with me. As soon as he finished speaking, he flew up on his sword and vanished into the starry sky in the blink of an eye. The all-heaven expert fell silent for a moment before he said, Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he led the experts of the ancient exalted clan into the starry sky, and Huang Guxing hurriedly led the experts of the ancient exalted clan into the starry sky as well. On the other hand, Ye Yao's brows were knit together tightly. He was comparatively calm, and his intuition told him that there was something fishy about this. However, he had no way to stop Exalted Heaven and Huang Guxing because he knew that they wouldn't give up on this opportunity. After all, it was a level 7 civilization. Up until now, they still hadn't laid eyes on a level 7 civilization, and becoming a level 7 civilization was their lifelong goal. Now that they had such an opportunity, they naturally had to seize it. Suddenly, Huan Ming said, Why aren't you going with them and are pondering here instead? Ye Yao's expression instantly changed drastically and he gazed at Huan Ming. He was just about to speak when a wisp of a ferocious smile arose on the corners of Huan Ming's mouth. The enmity of annihilation is absolutely irreconcilable? Who do you think you are? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly slapped his palm down. Bang! Ye Yao didn't even have the chance to react before he was blasted into the spatial abyss. Ye Yao descended madly from within the spatial abyss, and his eyes were filled with terror. He wasn't like Yi Xian, so he couldn't disregard the spatial abyss. But now the experts of the ancient exalted sect had left, so no one paid any attention to him. Despair. Ye Yao fell into despair within the spatial abyss. Huan Ming glanced coldly at Ye Yao. Who the hell do you think you are? You can't even compare to half of young Master Ye's intelligence, yet you dare to speak about taking revenge? As soon as he finished speaking, he led his clansmen away. It didn't take long for Ye Yao to be completely annihilated. Yi Xian was flying through the boundless starry sky while Huang Guxing and Huang Guxing weren't too far away from him. Meanwhile, Huang Guxing suddenly said, Young Master Yi, can you tell us about that green-clothed man and those two others? We want to get to know them. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, That green-clothed man's skin is extremely thick, shameless and wretched. You must be careful if you encounter him because he's truly shameless. Xiao Ta was at a loss for words. Huang Guxing gazed at Yi Xian. What we want to know is his strength. Yi Xian said, Actually, his strength isn't particularly terrifying. The most terrifying thing about him is his shamelessness. He acts extremely shamelessly, so you must be careful if you encounter him. Huang Guxing glanced at Yi Xian. Is he very shameless? Yi Xian spoke seriously. Extremely. Huang Guxing laughed. Tao, I'm quite curious. Yi Xian was about to speak when Huang Guxing suddenly asked, Where's that green-clothed man now? Yi Xian gazed towards the end of the starry sky and spoke softly. I don't know the specifics, but I can find him. Huang Guxing glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything else. Yi Xian suddenly sped up. About a day later, Yi Xian and the others arrived at an unknown starfield. A starfield very far from the exalted ancient world. Huang Guxing's eyes flashed with wariness. Young Master Yi, where are we? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Huang Guxing looked at Yi Xian. You don't know? Yi Xian gazed into the distance, whispering, We're almost there. Almost there. All Heaven Celestial was just about to speak when Desolate Xing's voice suddenly resounded within his mind. Be careful. Huang Guxing nodded. At this time Yi Xian disappeared into the distance on his sword. Huang Guxing glanced at Yi Xian in the distance. Let's go. About 2 hours later Yi Xian suddenly said excitedly, Everyone, I can already sense his aura. Saying so, his speed suddenly exploded. Behind him, Huang Guxing narrowed his eyes. Everyone get ready. With that, he led the exalted ancient clan in pursuit. Huang Guxing also hurriedly led the experts of his sect and followed closely behind. 4 hours later, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He looked into the distance and said excitedly, Found it. At the edge of the starry sky there were 2 swordsmen. One of them was a swordsman dressed in a green robe while the other was dressed in a white robe. At this moment, the corners of grand overarching heaven's mouth curled into a smile, and he waved his hand. Stop those 2 swordsmen. With that, the exalted clan experts behind him charged forward, quickly surrounding the 2 swordsmen. Chapter 1890. They were stunned. Regardless of whether it was the swordsman or the green-clothed man, both of them were slightly stunned. How did we get surrounded? Meanwhile, the green-clothed man turned around to gaze at Yi Xian, and his face instantly fell when he saw Yi Xian, that unfilial son. Yi Xian was speechless. The swordsman glanced at Yi Xian and grinned. He had a good impression of Yi Xian and the little fellow was to his liking. Meanwhile, Huang Gu and Xing from exalted heaven appeared in front of the green-clothed man, and they stared fixedly at the green-clothed man. Show yourself. As soon as the voice resounded, 2 old men appeared behind the green-clothed man and swordsman. Both of them were actually at the 17th rank, and their gazes had descended onto the green-clothed man. Their divine sense had locked onto the green-clothed man, and they would attack immediately if the green-clothed man moved in the slightest. Huang Gu's eyes were filled with surprise when he witnessed this scene. Both of them were supreme elders of the ancient exalted clan, and they'd been in closed-door cultivation for a few hundreds of thousands of years. He hadn't expected that exalted heaven would actually summon them. They're really going all out. Meanwhile, exalted heaven suddenly said, Attack. Attack right away. The first to strike gains the upper hand. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly clenched his right fist and smashed it forward. This fist shot straight towards the green-clothed man's head. The formidable force contained within his fist caused the starry sky in the surroundings to seethe. The green-clothed man frowned slightly. What's wrong with you? As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his thumb lightly. A ray of light flashed, and then the others didn't even have the chance to react before it stabbed into the center of the exalted heaven's forehead. In an instant, the surroundings fell silent. An instant kill. The exalted heaven is a 17th rank expert. He was instantly killed just like that. All the experts here were flabbergasted. On the other hand, exalted heaven's eyes were opened wide, and they were filled with disbelief. Who am I? What's wrong with me? At this moment, the minds of the exalted heaven had gone blank. On the other side, Huang Gu recovered from his shock, and then he gazed at Yi Xian and shouted furiously, Human! How dare you deceive us? He's not seriously injured at all. Yi Xian blinked. I apologize to you. Sorry, I lied. Huang Guxing's lungs almost exploded with rage when he heard this. He glared fixedly at Yi Xian, and then he looked at the green-clothed man and bowed slightly. Sir, this is a misunderstanding. This is a huge misunderstanding. As he spoke, he pointed angrily at Yi Xian. It's all because of this person. This person said that you were heavily injured, so he asked us to join forces to kill you. You, the azure-clothed man suddenly said. He's my son. Huang Guang's expression froze. Yi Xian looked at Huang Guxing. Are you trying to sow discord between us? Huang Guxing turned around and ran. Father and son? He knew that they had been tricked. At this moment, a sword suddenly pierced through his forehead. Huang Guxing's body froze, and then his body and soul disappeared bit by bit. At this time, the surrounding experts also came to their senses and fled. The green-robed man suddenly drew his sword and swept. Hiss. In an instant, tens of thousands of heads flew into the air while blood sprayed through the starry sky like fountains. It was an extremely bloody scene. Amongst them included the two 17th phase super experts. A single strike. The ancient exalted clan had been annihilated. The ancient desolate sect had been annihilated. Exalted celestial and desolate Xing, who were still alive, were completely dumbfounded by the scene before them. We'd come all the way here to give our lives away? As if he'd thought of something, exalted heaven suddenly gazed at Yi Xian and spoke resentfully. Human. I curse you. I curse you to die a horrible death. Meanwhile, the green-clothed man spoke abruptly. Are you treating me like I don't exist? Exalted heaven gazed at the green-clothed man and was about to speak when the green-clothed man casually swung his sword. His exalted heaven was instantly annihilated. The green-clothed man remained expressionless. You're cursing my son? What nonsense. As he spoke, he swung his sword once more. His Huang Guang was instantly annihilated. Yi Xian chuckled and hurriedly tried to flatter the green-clothed man. Father is invincible. The green-clothed man turned to gaze at Yi Xian, and he fell silent for a moment before he said, For the first time I feel that you're truly formidable. You actually brought your enemies here. Of course I admire your enemies even more. They actually followed you to find me. Why are your enemies so stupid? Can you explain it to me? Yi Xian was at a loss for words. The green-clothed man sighed softly. If you continue playing like this, then when will you be able to surpass the three of us? Tell me, do you have a chance to surpass us? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, I should be able to if I work hard. The green-clothed man glared angrily at Yi Xian. Are you talking about shamelessness? If it's shamelessness, then there's no need for you to work hard. You've already surpassed it. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Master, Xiao Ta can't bear to watch any longer. Didn't young master inherit his shamelessness from you? Yi Xian was at a loss for words. The green-clothed man opened his palm and Xiao Ta appeared in his hand. He looked at Xiao Ta and nodded slightly. Impressive. After Xiao Ta followed you, it's like he's changed towers. As he spoke, he suddenly took out a whip and lashed out. Ugh. Xiao Ta howled in pain. The green-clothed man glanced at Xiao Ta and then lashed out with his whip again. With a shrill cry, Xiao Ta was sent flying to the end of the starry sky. The green-clothed man looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian's expression changed slightly and he hurriedly said, Father, I really didn't want to bring them here to find you. They forced me to bring them here to find you. The green-clothed man just looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian was a little flustered from being stared at like that. Intuition told him that the situation was not good. At this moment, the green-clothed man suddenly said, I feel that you've been living too comfortably. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly said, Father, I promise I won't come looking for you anymore. I'll take Xiao Ta away now. After saying that, he was about to slip away. At this moment, a sword intent directly locked him in place. Yi Xian smiled bitterly and hurriedly looked at swordsman beside him. Big brother. Swordsman hesitated and then said, It's not my place to interfere in the matters between you and your father. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Xiao Ta, who was at the end of the starry sky, suddenly said, Young master, call Sister Tianming. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Damn Xiao Ta, can't you be more observant? I'm going to die because of you. As expected, the green-clothed man's expression instantly turned cold when he heard Xiao Ta's words, and he directly lashed out with his whip. At the end of the starry sky, Xiao Ta let out another shrill cry, and the cry grew further and further away. Yi Xian shook his head repeatedly when he saw this. Xiao Ta, oh Xiao Ta, you should be a little more careful. The green-clothed man looked at Yi Xian and Yi Xian hurriedly said, Father, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. From today onwards I'll rely on myself. I'll never. Shut up. The green-clothed man suddenly said, Do you think I'll believe your nonsense? Xian was speechless. The green-clothed man sized up Xian, and he fell silent for a moment before he said, I'll send you to a place. A trace of uneasiness arose in Xian's heart. Where? The green-clothed man said indifferently, You'll know when you get there. Go there and properly train your sword Dao. Of course, to prevent you from being flashy again, I'll have to seal your sword. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and the green profound sword fell into his hand. At this moment the green profound sword had not completely broken through. The green-clothed man's right hand exerted force slightly. Buzz. The green profound sword let out a sword cry, and a powerful aura surged out from the sword. In an instant the surrounding space became illusory. Even the 8th layer of space became illusory. I've broken through. Xian was overjoyed. Meanwhile, the green-clothed man suddenly flipped his palm, and the green profound sword directly sank into the space between Xian's brows. Boom. Xian's body shook violently and he was slightly stunned. But soon his expression changed. He could not sense Xiaohun. The green profound sword had been sealed. The green-clothed man suddenly said, If your sword Dao can break through, the seal on this sword will automatically be removed. Xian spoke in a low voice. Father, where are you sending me? The green-clothed man turned around to glance at Qianxia, and this glance was able to see through all the territories in the world. After a short moment he withdrew his gaze. A place that's extremely dangerous for you. Xian hurriedly said, Can you give me a few days? I need to deal with some personal matters. The green-clothed man replied, There's no need. As he spoke he opened his right hand and Xiao Ta appeared within it. He suddenly clenched his right hand, causing Xiao Ta to tremble violently, and then the strange space within Xiao Ta's world was instantly sealed by him. In other words, Xiao Ta wasn't a paradise for cultivation any longer. Because it couldn't stay like it was 10 years in the outside world any longer. The green-clothed man gazed at Xiao Ta in his hand. If you're still so arrogant the next time I see you, then I'll break your legs. As he spoke he placed Xiao Ta in front of Xian. Both of you better think about it. As he finished speaking without waiting for Xian to speak, he gently waved his right hand, and a sword ray tore through the starry sky. The next moment Xian and Xiao Ta were directly sent away by this sword ray. After Xian and Xiao Ta were sent away, the green-clothed man sighed softly. Beside him swordsman smiled and asked, What's wrong? The green-clothed man said softly, Heavens has opened up too many shortcuts for this little guy, and this isn't a good thing. Swordsman was silent. The green-clothed man sighed softly. This little guy was getting more and more fancy. Most importantly, when he encountered difficulties, this little guy didn't think of using strength to solve them, but instead used some crooked ideas. He really didn't expect that Xian would bring the enemy right in front of him. This kind of operation left him dumbfounded. At this moment swordsman suddenly asked, Where did you send him? The green-clothed man thought about it and said, A place far away from heaven's will. Not only that, I've also completely concealed his aura and sealed his sword. Now Tianming shouldn't be able to sense him. As soon as he finished speaking, a woman in a plain dress suddenly stopped in a mysterious galaxy. She turned her head and glanced at him before turning to leave. Chapter 1891. When Xian woke up his head felt like it was filled with lead. It was extremely heavy. Xian shook his head with all his might. After his head cleared up a little he slowly opened his eyes and looked around. At that moment he was in the middle of a battlefield. There were corpses and blood everywhere. The air was filled with the nauseating smell of blood and the smell of rotting corpses. Where is this? Xian frowned. Where did Pop send me to? As if he thought of something, Xian closed his eyes. After a while his face turned ugly. He couldn't contact little Hun. The green profound sword was really sealed. At that moment, a weak voice suddenly sounded in front of Xian. Young master. It was Xiao Ta's voice. Xian looked at his chest. Xiao Ta was lying on his chest. At that moment Xiao Ta was in a miserable state. His whole body was cracked. It could be said that he was covered with cuts and bruises. Xian shook his head and sighed. Xiao Ta, I don't think I'm fit to be your young master. Actually, he was also speechless. This Xiao Ta was too arrogant. He actually dared to talk back to Pops. Was he crazy? Who was Pops? Based on the current situation, Pops was also an invincible existence. At that moment, Xiaota suddenly said in a deep voice, "There's still a gap between me and Master." Xian shook his head. This Xiaota was already hopeless. The gap. He was so thick-skinned that even he was about to concede defeat. At that moment, Xiaota said again, "Young Master, what should we do now?" "What should we do?" Xian looked around helplessly. "What else can we do? From now on I'll be a low-key person and you'll be a low-key pagoda." Xiaota said in a deep voice, "I think under the 3 swords young master and I are still invincible." Xian immediately fainted. The Xiaota was hopeless. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from behind him. Xian was startled and turned around. Not far away, a woman was slowly walking over. Not human. Although she wasn't human, her appearance wasn't much different from a human's. However, the woman's ears were a little like a fox's and they were furry. His hair was not black but blue. Behind the woman there were a few burly men. Xian was secretly on his guard. His father would definitely not send him to a world with an extremely low level of civilization. This place was at least a level 7 civilization. As for the woman in front of him, he could not see through her at all. The woman sized up Xian and spoke. However, Xian had no idea what she was talking about. Xian hesitated for a moment. "Miss, can you speak human language?" Hearing Xian's words, the woman frowned. A moment later, a voice sounded in Xian's mind. "What kind of creature are you? Why are you here?" Divine sense communication. Xian's expression became even more solemn. She was actually able to enter his divine sense without a sound. When she saw that Xian didn't reply, the woman frowned slightly. "Why aren't you replying?" When he saw that the woman's expression was hostile, Xian hurriedly said, "Human." "Human?" The woman sized up Xian again and said, "I've never heard of you." Xian glanced at the woman. "How should I address you, miss?" The woman looked at Xian and didn't speak. Xian was in a difficult position. This woman wouldn't have taken a liking to me, right? At this moment, the woman suddenly said, "You humans are too ugly." Xian was speechless. The woman continued, "Not only are you ugly but you're also so weak." At this moment, Xiaota suddenly said, "Young master, how can we tolerate this? Hit her." Xian directly disregarded Xiaota. He cupped his fists and said, "Miss, where are we?" The woman gazed at Xian. "You don't know where we are?" Xian nodded. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then why have you appeared here?" Xian was about to speak when the sky in the distance suddenly seethed. Xian turned around and looked over. A powerful wave of pressure swept over from afar, and then a man walked out from within space. The man wore golden armor and held a spear in his hand. Moreover, a pair of wings grew on his back, and as they flapped, the space around him rippled like water. The woman's expression instantly turned cold when she saw this man, and the expressions of the 2 experts behind her became solemn. The armored man's gaze descended onto the woman, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "Miss Aroshing, what a coincidence." The woman called Aroshing chuckled lightly. "Yen Emperor, looks like your Yen clan is interested in this restricted area as well." Yen Huang laughed. "Likewise." Aroshing smiled faintly. "Shall we cooperate?" Yen Huang glanced at Aroshing and said with a smile, "Sure." Aroshing turned to Xian. "You're new here and I believe you have nowhere to go. Why don't you follow me? What do you think?" Xian quickly shook his head and was about to refuse when Aroshing spoke again. "This place is called 10 Directions Impasse. Do you see the corpses around you? They were all 18 stages when they were alive." 18 stages. Xian's expression changed. "Damn it. What kind of damned place did my dad send me to? 18 stages are like ants? This is my real dad." Xian was speechless. Aroshing asked again, "What do you think?" Xian looked at Aroshing. "I'll follow you." Aroshing smiled and looked at Yen Huang. "Let's go." Yen Huang looked at Xian and nodded. The group started walking away. They had only taken a few steps when the ground on their right suddenly trembled. The next moment, a rotten corpse suddenly broke through the ground and headed straight for Aroshing and the others. Wherever this rotten corpse passed, the 7th layer of spacetime was directly shattered and annihilated. Seeing this, Xian's expression changed. "What the hell is this? How could it be so terrifying?" Yan Huang suddenly stabbed out with his spear. Boom. The zombie was erased by the spear. Instant kill. Yi Xian took a deep look at the Yan Emperor and Aluosheng who were leading the group. The strength of these two people might have reached level 20. What kind of place is this? Yi Xian frowned. He was a little worried about his own survival at the moment. He was only a 10th stage now, and the green profound sword was sealed by his dad. Right now he was too weak, way too weak. That rotten corpse just now could have killed him in an instant. My dear dad. Yi Xian sighed. His dad only knew to send him to a dangerous place. He definitely didn't think about how dangerous this place was or his current strength. At this moment the Yan Emperor and Arashing who were in the lead suddenly stopped. Yi Xian looked around and frowned. His instincts told him that there was danger. As soon as this thought came to mind, the space around them suddenly trembled. Then the space around them started to corrode bit by bit. Danger. Yi Xian's expression became serious. What kind of place is this? At this moment the Yan Emperor suddenly stomped his right foot lightly. Boom. The wings on the Yan Emperor's back suddenly flapped, and in an instant, the space he was in was directly enveloped by a mysterious airflow. At the same time, Arlasheng suddenly pressed down with her right hand, and in an instant, the space she and the two old men behind her were in was enveloped by a layer of golden light. As if thinking of something, Arasheng looked at Yi Xian. Right now the space around Yi Xian was completely corroded. In a few breaths he would disappear from this world. Yi Xian's expression was calm, but he was panicking inside. What should I do? He wanted to summon the green profound sword, but he couldn't sense little soul. At this moment Arashing who was next to him, suddenly pressed down lightly with her right hand, and Yi Xian was instantly enveloped by a golden light. Yi Xian relaxed. He looked at Arashing and smiled. Thank you. Arashing smiled. You're welcome. Yan Huang glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Hee. Right at this moment, a cold and strange laughter suddenly sounded from the side. Yi Xian turned his head to look. Not far away the ground there suddenly split open. Then a skeleton slowly floated out. The skeleton held a bone blade in its hand. Seeing this skeleton, Arasheng frowned. Undead Emperor. The skeleton looked at Arasheng. You know of me? Arasheng looked at the undead emperor. A million years ago, I was invincible in the realm of Seamless. Huh. The undead emperor laughed. I didn't think that after a million years, someone would still know of me. Not bad, not bad. Aluosheng said in a deep voice. Why are you here? The undead emperor smiled. I want to obtain the 10 directions God Emperor's inheritance. Arosa's gaze fell upon the undead emperor's feet. There was a blood-red chain around the undead emperor's feet. Seeing this, Arasheng's expression darkened. Retreat. Retreat. Just as she was about to leave with the two elders behind her, the space around them suddenly turned blood-red. Then countless blood-red chains suddenly flew out from the space around them. The Yan Emperor in the lead narrowed his eyes. He suddenly leaped up and slashed down with the spear in his hand. However, this attack was completely useless. A blood-red chain pierced through the center of his brows and forcefully locked him on the spot. On the other side, Arasheng was about to leave with the two elders behind her, but she was too slow. 3 blood-red chains locked the 3 of them in place. They didn't even have a chance to resist. Yi Xian, on the other hand, was more sensible. When the blood-red chains appeared, he stretched out his hands and obediently let the blood-red chains lock him up. No resistance. Surrender. Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly rang out from the side. Everyone turned around to look and they saw a little girl walking over slowly from nearby. The little girl wasn't wearing shoes and she wore a red dress. Upon closer inspection, the dress was formed from blood. On the right side of the little girl's face, there was a deep scar that made the little girl look somewhat ferocious. In the little girl's right hand, there was a dagger made of blood. Seeing the little girl, the undead emperor immediately knelt on the ground and trembled. The little girl walked in front of the fire emperor. She looked up at him and opened her palm. 10 billion soul crystals. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn, is this a female bandit? But what the hell is a soul crystal? The fire emperor looked at the little girl. None. The little girl suddenly waved her right hand. In an instant, the fire emperor was directly dismembered into tens of thousands of pieces. Even his soul was dismembered. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. That's it? Such a powerful super expert was killed just like that. The little girl walked in front of Zhou Xian. She looked at Zhou Xian and opened her right hand. 10 billion. Zhou Xian was silent for a moment. I don't have it on me. Can I have someone send it over? The little girl nodded. Sure. As she said this, she looked at the two elders behind Zhou Xian. The two elders hurriedly looked at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian remained silent. 1 million soul crystals. This number was simply too large. What were soul crystals? They were soul essences condensed from souls. Most importantly, not all souls could be condensed into soul essences. Only those who had reached at least the 15th phase could condense soul crystals. 1 million soul crystals. This meant that at least 1 million 15th phase and above experts had to be killed. Seeing that Zhou Xian didn't say anything, the two elders' faces turned ashen. At this time, the little girl waved her right hand and the two elders were dismembered into tens of thousands of pieces. The little girl walked in front of Xian. When she saw Xian, she frowned. So weak. Xian, the little girl stretched out her right hand. 1 million soul crystals. Xian shook his head. I don't have it. The little girl looked at Xian. Have someone send it over. Xian didn't say anything. The little girl was about to move. At this time Xian hurriedly said, I'll have someone send it over. As he said this, he slowly closed his eyes. Xiaoling, tell Xiaobai to contact Dad and tell him that I've been kidnapped. Have him pay 2 million soul crystals to redeem me. A moment later, in an unknown galaxy, a man in a green robe suddenly stopped. Beside him, the swordsman asked, What's wrong? The green robe man was expressionless. He's been kidnapped. Let me pay him back. The swordsman. Chapter 1892. He was kidnapped. Swordsman's expression was a little strange. The green-robed man sighed softly. This guy, swordsman smiled. He must have encountered some kind of trouble. Should we go and take a look? The green-robed man hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. Let him solve it himself. Swordsman said. He probably can't solve it, that's why he came to you. The green-robed man shook his head and sighed. Brother Xiao, we don't have much time. He must grow up. If Tianming and I still help him like this, he will never grow up. Swordsman thought for a moment, then nodded. That's true. The green-robed man said. Let's go. Swordsman hesitated for a moment, then said. Let's wait and see. Swordsman shook his head and smiled. Clearly, the green-robed man was still worried. 10th extremity. The little girl in the red dress sat on a rock, her two little feet swaying gently. In her hand there was a half-eaten spirit fruit. In front of the little girl, the undead emperor was dancing. That's right. A skeleton was dancing, and it was quite a good dance. It had to be said that the scene was very strange. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian's expression was extremely solemn. Who was this undead emperor? 1,000,000 years ago he was already invincible in the Seamless Realm. And now, such an invincible powerhouse was actually dancing here. Who was this little girl in the red dress? Was she the 10th God Emperor? Zhou Xian's heart was full of doubts, but she didn't dare to ask for fear of angering the little girl. Not long after, an old man came to the 10th extremity. The old man walked in front of Zhou Xian and respectfully handed over a storage ring. Inside the ring there were 10 billion soul crystals. Zhou Xian handed the storage ring to the little girl. The little girl glanced at it, then put it away and said, Let's go. Zhou Xian nodded slightly, then turned and left. When passing by Xian, she suddenly stopped and turned to look at Xian. Where's your family? Hearing this, Xian suddenly felt sad. Because his father didn't reply. Zhou Xian gently patted Xian's shoulder. Take care. With that, she quickly disappeared into the distance without looking back. At this moment, the little girl looked at Xian and did not say anything. Xian didn't say anything. At this time, the little girl got up and walked in front of Xian. The spirit fruit in her hand had turned into a dagger. It was this dagger that had dismembered the Yan Emperor into tens of thousands of pieces. The little girl looked at Xian. Popper. As she spoke, she was about to attack. However, Xian suddenly said, Wait. The little girl stared at Xian without saying anything, but Xian could already feel a terrifying killing intent. Xian opened his palm and Xiao Ta appeared in his hand. Take a look and see if this is worth 10 billion soul crystals. Xiao Ta immediately jumped up. Young master, you're too much. You actually sold it to me. Yi Xian. In front of Yi Xian, the little girl glanced at Xiao Ta and frowned. After a while she shook her head. It's not worth it. Hearing this, Xiao Ta was furious. You actually said that I'm not worth it? I'm the #1 pagoda in the universe. Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. The #1 pagoda in the universe, I can testify. The little girl sized up Xiao Ta and shook her head again. It's useless. Yi Xian. Xiao Ta still wanted to say something, but the little girl suddenly slashed down with her dagger. Boom. Xiao Ta trembled violently and was directly sent flying. However, he was not damaged. The little girl frowned slightly when she witnessed this scene. She opened her palm and the tiny pagoda appeared in her hand. She sized up the tiny pagoda, and in the next moment she entered the tiny pagoda's world. In Xiao Ta's world, the little girl looked around. Very quickly, she seemed to have discovered something and her brows furrowed again. After a while, the little girl's eyes narrowed. She discovered a seal. The seal left behind by the green-robed man. Suddenly, the little girl slashed down with her dagger. Boom. The surrounding space suddenly shook violently, but that seal did not have any reaction. After a moment of silence, the little girl left Xiao Ta. She just looked at Yi Xian, not saying anything. Yi Xian's scalp went numb from her stare. This woman had no way of breaking the seal left behind by his father, but she was definitely not someone he could fight against at the moment. The little girl suddenly turned around and left. Yi Xian frowned, a little confused. At the side, the undead emperor took a deep look at Yi Xian, and then hurriedly followed after the little girl. Yi Xian was a little confused. Why did the little girl suddenly stop? He had actually already felt this little girl's killing intent. She wanted to kill him, but for some reason she stopped. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian decided to escape. He had just taken a few steps when a voice suddenly spoke up from the side. If I were you, I would stay here. Yi Xian turned around and saw that the undead emperor had returned. Yi Xian asked in a low voice, "Why?" The undead emperor said calmly, "There are undead everywhere outside. If you go out, you will be instantly dismembered." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then asked, "Senior, who is that little girl?" The undead emperor shook her head. "I don't know." Yi Xian frowned. "You don't know?" The undead emperor nodded. "I have been here for 800,000 years, but I know nothing about her." 800,000 years. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. This girl had been imprisoned here for 800,000 years. The undead emperor glanced at Yi Xian. "I don't know why she hasn't killed you, but remember, don't make her angry. Don't ever make her angry. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe." After saying this, the undead emperor turned around and left. Yi Xian raised his head and saw a black cloud floating above his head. Apart from that, there was nothing else. A moment later, Yi Xian walked off into the distance. After passing through a narrow cave, Yi Xian's expression drastically changed. Not too far away from him was a boundless sea of blood. He couldn't even see the end of it, and the little girl was sitting right next to the sea of blood. The undead emperor followed her from afar. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before walking over to the little girl's side. Seeing this, the undead emperor's mouth twitched. Was this guy trying to get himself killed? In the distance, the little girl turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian directly took out a stick of candied hawthorn and handed it to the little girl. The little girl furrowed her eyebrows. "What is it?" Yi Xian said in a serious tone. "Candied hawthorn." The little girl glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Yi Xian hurriedly said, "It's delicious." After a moment of silence, the little girl accepted the candied hawthorn and licked it. Her eyes instantly widened, and the next moment she hurriedly licked it again. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Damn, this candied hawthorn was truly a divine artifact. Fortunately, he had prepared several bundles of candied hawthorn. It could save his life at a critical moment. Yi Xian looked at the little girl. "Does it taste good?" The little girl nodded. "Sure." Yi Xian took out another candied hawthorn and handed it to the little girl. "Eat this candied hawthorn and we'll be good friends from now on." This caused the undead emperor to widen her eyes in shock. Had this guy gone crazy? Become friends with this little girl? At this moment, the little girl took the candied hawthorn from Yi Xian's hands. "Friends?" Yi Xian nodded. "Do you have any friends?" The little girl shook her head. "No." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Then I'll be your friend from now on." The little girl glanced at Yi Xian. "Okay." The undead emperor almost fainted upon hearing this. Friends? Damn. This guy used a candied hawthorn to become friends with this little girl? The undead emperor felt like his brain wasn't enough to process this. Yi Xian sat down next to the little girl and smiled. My name is Yi Xian. What's your name? The little girl said, Blood Eye. Blood Eye. Yi Xian smiled and then asked, Can you leave? Blood Eye shook his head. No. Yi Xian said in a low voice, There's a barrier? Blood Eye nodded. Yes. Yi Xian frowned. You're so powerful but you can't break it? Blood Eye said softly, I'm injured. Injured. Yi Xian sized up Blood Eye and then said, How long will it take for you to recover? Blood Eye shook his head. I won't recover. Yi Xian didn't quite understand. Why? Blood Eye turned to glance at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Yi Xian was about to speak when Blood Eye suddenly said, Friends? Yi Xian looked at Blood Eye and Blood Eye stared back at Yi Xian. You and I are friends? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Blood Eye nodded slightly. Friends should help each other, right? Yi Xian was just about to nod when he suddenly realized that something was off. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't reply, Blood Eye narrowed his eyes. You don't treat me as a friend? In an instant the nearby sea of blood started to seethe, and boundless killing intent filled the entire sky. Off to the side, the undead emperor immediately crawled down and trembled in fear. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Friend. We're good friends. Blood Eye nodded slightly and the sea of blood instantly calmed down. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This little girl's strength is truly terrifying. At this moment Blood Eye suddenly said, I want to ask you for a favor. Yi Xian's expression froze. His intuition told him that he'd been tricked. Blood Eye turned to look at Yi Xian. A small favor. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, I'm a little weak. Blood Eye looked directly at Yi Xian. Are you going to help me or not? Yi Xian felt quite helpless. Tell me. Blood Eye looked at Yi Xian. Who left the seal within Xiaota's body? Yi Xian's expression became solemn when he heard this. At this moment he understood why the little girl hadn't killed him. So it was because of his father. Blood Eye asked again. Who? Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. I know what you mean but I can't contact him. Even if I could he wouldn't come. Blood Eye frowned slightly. Who is he to you? Yi Xian felt quite helpless. My father. Blood Eye stared at Yi Xian. Biological father? Yi Xian nodded. Blood Eye fell silent for a moment before he said, Put on a show. Just say that I want to kill you and ask him to save you. What do you think? Yi Xian said helplessly, I tried just now. He didn't even pay attention to me. Blood Eye frowned slightly. Are you sure he's your biological father? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he said, I'm not very sure. Shui Tong fell silent for a moment before he said, I suggest you change your father. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Please vote. Any ticket is fine. Chapter 1893. Change father? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. How could he change his father whenever he wanted? At this moment Small Tower suddenly snorted coldly and said, Master is just not kind. He always says that you rely too much on big sister Tianming and him, but he never thinks about one problem and that is young Master your enemy. Master didn't have so many powerful enemies back then, but young Master your enemies have always been abnormal. Look young Master you're only at the 10th phase now but the enemies you're facing are all at the 20th phase. How are you going to play? Yi Xian smiled. Actually I can understand father. Xiaota was puzzled. Understand? He treats you like this and you still understand him? After a moment of silence Yi Xian said, I can't deny that I relied too much on Qing. Look at me now without the profound azure sword I'm like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Xiaota was silent. Yi Xian said softly, I need to change myself. In some unknown part of the starry sky, the man in green suddenly withdrew his gaze and laughed. Brother Xiao let's go. After saying that he laughed and disappeared at the end of the starry sky. Beside the blood sea Shui Tong didn't speak anymore. She sat on a rock and licked her candied haws, then looked at the distant blood sea. Yi Xian walked to the side, opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. He slowly closed his eyes and gradually he fused with the 6th layer of time and space. Without the profound azure sword he could still fuse with the 6th layer of time and space. However, he didn't dare to be as unscrupulous as before because the current him not only couldn't ignore the space-time abyss, but he also couldn't ignore the space-time pressure of the sixth layer of time and space. When seeing Yi Xian enter the sixth layer of time and space, the undead emperor frowned. You're only at the 10th phase, how can you enter the sixth layer of time and space and fuse with it? Yi Xian was puzzled. Senior can't enter the sixth layer of time and space at the 10th phase? The undead emperor looked at Yi Xian. No. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why not? The undead emperor growled. What I want to know is how you are able to do this. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I just gave it a try and then I fused with it. The undead emperor. Yi Xian asked, Senior, what realm is the seamless realm that Miss Xing mentioned? The undead emperor glanced at Yi Xian then said, after the 20th phase, if you continue to improve your power, you'll be at the seamless level. There was no space and there was no time. In other words, the 8th layer of space. The 8th layer of space-time is also called the seamless space. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, when I entered the 8th space-time, I saw someone who looked exactly like me. That was... The undead emperor suddenly interrupted Yi Xian. You've entered the 8th heaven? Yi Xian nodded. Yeah. The undead emperor stared at Yi Xian. Are you joking? Yi Xian shook his head. No. The undead emperor said in a deep voice, You've really been there before? Yi Xian nodded. I've been there before. The undead emperor looked deeply at Yi Xian. You're very abnormal. He believed Yi Xian's words, because if Yi Xian hadn't entered the 8th layer of space-time, he wouldn't know what it was like in the 8th layer of space-time. But what he didn't understand was, how did this guy get in there? Yi Xian suddenly asked, Senior, what is seamless? The undead emperor fell silent for a moment then said, I don't know how to explain it to you. The current your realm is a bit low. Also your aura is a bit weak and unstable. It's obvious that you've taken a shortcut. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. This was a real boss. The undead emperor asked again, You're a swordsman? Yi Xian nodded. A swordsman. The undead emperor laughed. I once knew a swordsman and had a few exchanges with him. He had some insights into the way of the sword. Come show me a sword technique and I'll give you some pointers. Yi Xian nodded, then suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Sword draw to decide life and death. 2,800 stacked sword draws to decide life and death. This sword strike tore the space around them apart. Xue Tong suddenly turned his head to look at Yi Xian and frowned. When the undead emperor saw Yi Xian's sword strike, his expression instantly became serious. Who taught you this sword technique? Yi Xian said seriously, I created it myself. Created it himself. The undead emperor paused for a moment then said, You created this sword technique yourself? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. The undead emperor looked deeply at Yi Xian. Impressive. Yi Xian said, I also have another sword technique. After saying that, he directly used sword draw to decide life and death. When the undead emperor saw this sword strike, his expression became even more serious. You created this as well? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. I spent 10 days to create it. The undead emperor was speechless. Actually, Yi Xian wasn't trying to show off. He had only used these two sword techniques to protect himself. The more extraordinary his performance was, the greater his chances of survival. At this moment, the undead emperor said in a low voice, Little brother, your background isn't simple at all. Yi Xian said seriously, Please teach me, senior. After a moment of silence, the undead emperor said, I don't have the qualifications to teach you this sword technique, but I do have some personal insights. Yi Xian hurriedly bowed respectfully. Please teach me, senior. The undead emperor said in a low voice, Your realm is on the low side. If you reach the 20th stage with that sword technique of yours, you can be said to be almost invincible within the 20th stage. You can even fight against seamless realm powerhouses. So, you must first break through your own realm and raise yourself to the 20th stage. Yi Xian nodded. Right. The undead emperor hesitated for a moment then said, But if you want to reach the 20th stage you must have soul crystals. You need at least 500,000 soul crystals. Yi Xian was a little confused. What are soul crystals? The undead emperor was a little confused. You don't know what soul crystals are? Yi Xian nodded. I don't know. The undead emperor had a rather strange expression on his face. Moments later he said, A soul crystal refers to a soul essence condensed from one's soul. This soul essence's energy is incredibly terrifying, far more powerful than some crystals. From a certain standpoint, a single soul crystal is equivalent to a person's life's work. The more powerful one's soul is, the more powerful the soul essence will be. If you want to reach the 20th stage, you need at least 500,000 soul crystals. 500,000 soul crystals. Zhou Xian looked at the undead emperor who stretched out his hands. Don't even think about it. I don't even have a single strand of hair. Zhou Xian sized up the undead emperor. Indeed, he did not have a single strand of hair, only bones. The undead emperor glanced at Crimson Eye, but did not say anything. Zhou Xian naturally understood what he meant. He looked at Crimson Eye. This girl must have a lot of soul crystals. Crimson Eye glanced at Zhou Xian. A stick of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals. Hearing this, Zhou Xian was stunned. A stick of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals? At this moment, Crimson Eye asked again, "Do you want to trade?" Zhou Xian thought for a moment before saying, 2 sticks of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals. Crimson Eye looked at Zhou Xian. Why? Zhou Xian said seriously, "Because we're friends. If 1 stick of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals, my conscience would ache. The reason why my life has been full of ups and downs is because I'm too honest." Beside him, the undead emperor's mouth twitched slightly. He wanted to hit someone. Perhaps Crimson Eye did not recognize candied hawthorn, but how could he not recognize it? 2 sticks of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals? Damn it, this guy was crazy. At this moment he felt quite sullen. Damn it, if he had known that this boss Crimson Eye liked eating candied hawthorn, he would not have ended up like this. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel sorrow. Hundreds of thousands of years. He had relied on dancing to please this boss Crimson Eye for the past hundreds of thousands of years. But this human had used candied hawthorn to befriend this boss Crimson Eye. Candied hawthorn. Damn it, why hadn't he brought some candied hawthorn? Not far away, Crimson Eye looked at Zhou Xian. After a moment of silence, she said, "You're not bad." As she spoke, she waved her right hand and 100,000 soul crystals appeared in front of Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian hurriedly took out 5 sticks of candied hawthorn and gave them to Crimson Eye. He thought for a moment before taking out an extra stick and giving it to Crimson Eye. "I'll give you 1 more." Crimson Eye glanced at Zhou Xian. She accepted the candied hawthorn and said, "Thank you." Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "You're welcome, you're welcome." As he spoke, he walked over to the undead emperor. "Senior, I'm going to break through to the 20th phase." The undead emperor. In the following period of time, Zhou Xian began to break through to the 20th phase. Even though he was only at the 10th phase, he could already enter the 6th layer of spacetime and fuse with it. What he needed now was some experience in the way of spacetime. And this undead emperor's guidance could make up for that. The undead emperor was actually quite shocked. This was because Zhou Xian's cultivation speed was quite fast. This guy was only at the 10th phase, but he could already enter the 6th layer of spacetime and fuse with it. This was simply too abnormal. The undead emperor was becoming more and more curious about Zhou Xian's origins. The reason why he had expressed goodwill to Zhou Xian before was because he felt that Zhou Xian was not a simple person. Perhaps this human could change his current predicament. Time passed bit by bit. Zhou Xian's progress was godly, and he reached the 12th phase in less than a month. Not only that, but under the undead emperor's guidance, he became more and more familiar with the way of spacetime and understood it better. While Zhou Xian was cultivating, Crimson Eye would sit by the blood sea every day without saying a word. Another month passed and Zhou Xian had reached the 13th phase. Even though he was only at the 13th phase with his current strength, he could easily kill someone at the 17th phase even without using the profound green sword. It had to be said that cultivation consumed a lot of soul crystals. He had spent at least 1,000,000 soul crystals to reach the 13th phase. Fortunately, he had enough candied hawthorn. Otherwise, he would not have been able to cultivate so quickly. 1 month later, Zhou Xian had reached the 14th phase. Just as he was about to continue cultivating, the blood sea in the distance suddenly began to boil. At the same time, an extremely terrifying pressure swept out from the depths of the blood sea. Chapter 1894. This sudden turn of events caused Zhou Xian to frown. Just as he was about to ask the undead emperor what had happened, he was astonished to find that the undead emperor was lying flat on the ground, her bones trembling. Zhou Xian's expression changed when he saw this. At this moment the undead emperor suddenly said in a trembling voice, "Little fellow, kneel." Her voice was filled with terror. "Kneel?" Xian shook his head. A person could die but their backbone could not be broken. Actually, the main thing was that kneeling like this was too embarrassing. It was better to hold on for a while. Next to the sea of blood, Blood Eye slowly licked her candied paws with a calm expression. Xian hesitated for a moment before walking over to Blood Eye. Blood Eye turned to glance at Xian before continuing to lick her candied paws. Xian was about to speak when the sea of blood in the distance suddenly parted. Immediately afterwards, a bloodied person slowly walked over. When the undead emperor saw this bloody person, she buried her head in the ground and couldn't stop trembling. He was terrified to the extreme. Blood Eye looked at the bloodied person with a calm expression. At this moment, the bloodied person walked over to Blood Eye and bowed slightly. "Second miss, the patriarch has fallen." Blood Eye stopped licking her candied paws. She looked at the bloodied person and said, "Good." The bloodied person said in a low voice, "Second miss, before the patriarch fell, he said that you might become a threat to the family in the future. So as soon as he died he had to get rid of you." Hearing this, Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it. Did this mean that the father was going to kill his daughter? At this moment he suddenly felt that his father was not bad. There had to be a comparison. Blood Eye glanced at the bloodied person. "You." As she spoke, she suddenly flipped her right hand. In an instant, a white light appeared above the blood-covered man's head. The blood-covered man was greatly shocked. "Seamless Dao. You've always been hiding your strength." Boom. Before the bloodied person could finish speaking, he was directly wiped out. Xue Tong took out a stick of Tonghulu and continued licking it. "If I didn't hide my strength, would that old fart have let me live until now?" Xian could not help but glance at Xue Tong. He had always felt that he had taken advantage of Xue Tong. 2 candied haws for 100,000 soul crystals, that was a huge profit. But at this moment he suddenly realized that this little girl was not stupid at all. While he was tricking others, he might also be tricked by others. Right at this moment, Xue Tong suddenly turned to look at Xian. "I'll take you with me." Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Where to?" Xue Tong licked his candied fruit and then he said, "Nine Heavens City." Xian frowned. "Where?" Blood Eye said, "My former home." Xian's expression immediately changed. "You want to kill your way back?" Xue Tong looked at Xian. "My father is dead. Shouldn't I go back and have a look?" Xian spoke in a low voice. "You should go back and have a look, but it has nothing to do with me, right?" Xue Tong frowned slightly. "Aren't we friends?" Xian's expression froze. Xue Tong continued, "Since we're friends, then isn't my father your father as well? Of course your father will be my father as well. I'm very fair." Xian was dumbfounded. "Is that even possible?" Xue Tong looked at Xian. "You don't treat me as a friend?" Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Of course we're friends. But why are you taking me with you?" Xue Tong said, "Digging graves." "Oh no, I mean going back to observe mourning." Xian broke out in cold sweat. "This fellow wants to go back and dig graves. Damn it. She's leading me into a pit of fire." Xue Tong suddenly said, "Let's go." She turned around and left once she finished speaking. Xian suddenly said, "Is it all right if I don't go?" Xue Tong stopped and turned to look at Xian. "Can you contact your father now?" Xian was speechless. Xue Tong said, "If you can't, then let's go." She turned around and walked towards the sea of blood. A threat. A blatant threat. Xian fell silent for a moment before he turned to look at the undead emperor. "Senior, do you want to go with me?" The undead emperor hurriedly shook her head. No. Little brother, you go. Take care." Xian was speechless. A moment later, Xian and Xue Tong disappeared into the sea of blood. The undead emperor let out a heavy sigh of relief. He was finally free. In the distance, Xian and Xue Tong walked on the sea of blood. Xue Tong walked very slowly as he licked his candied fruit. Xian suddenly asked, "Xue Tong, why are you taking me to that city of the 9 heavens?" Xue Tong said, "We're friends. You said that friends should share blessings and misfortunes together. Is there a problem?" Xian was speechless. Xue Tong said, "Don't be afraid. It's no big deal." Xian was speechless. "Of course you're not afraid. I'm so weak. I won't even know how I died if I went to dig up a grave with you." He wanted to run, but he knew that he couldn't escape at all. Xue Tong's strength wasn't something he could fight against right now. At this moment, the sky in the distance suddenly trembled. Yi Xian looked at the sky and saw that it had suddenly split open. Immediately, a figure floated out. It was a woman. The woman wore a long white dress and had a long tail. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Xue Tong's. Xue Tong glanced at the woman before continuing to lick his candied fruit. The woman in the white dress looked at Xue Tong. "What are you doing?" Xue Tong said, observing filial piety. The woman in the white dress stared at Xue Tong. "He's already dead. This matter ends here, all right?" "Ends." Xue Tong grinned. "It's just begun." As she spoke, she turned around and pointed at Yi Xian. "Let me introduce a friend I just met. His name is Yi Xian." Yi Xian was speechless. "Why are you introducing me?" The woman in the white dress glanced at Yi Xian and said, "Such a weak friend?" Yi Xian was speechless. Xue Tong licked his candied fruit. "Is there anything else?" The woman in the white dress looked at Xue Tong. "Don't seek death." With that, she disappeared. Xue Tong continued forward. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Aren't you going to reconsider?" Xue Tong took out a candied fruit and passed it to Yi Xian. "Don't be afraid. At worst, I'll just die." Yi Xian was speechless. Not long after, Xue Tong brought Yi Xian to a stone step. At the end of the stone step was a huge stone door. The stone door was 300 m tall and extremely grand. Xue Tong said softly, "We're here." Yi Xian glanced at the stone door. There were 4 large words in the center of the stone door. 9 Heavens City. Xue Tong suddenly walked up. At this moment, a man in black armor suddenly appeared not far away from Xue Tong. He was about to speak when Xue Tong suddenly pressed his right hand down. Boom. The man in black armor was directly obliterated. Instant kill. Xue Tong looked up and smiled. "It's time to destroy the 9 Heavens clan." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly stomped her right foot. Boom. The stone gate collapsed with a loud rumble. At this moment, countless powerful auras suddenly appeared in the surroundings. At the same time, a woman in a white dress appeared not far away from Xue Tong. It was the woman in the white dress that Yi Xian had seen earlier. The woman in the white dress looked at Xue Tong. "I gave you a chance." Xue Tong said disdainfully, "Gave me a chance? Big sister, who do you think you are? Are you even worthy of giving me a chance?" As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly flipped her right hand. Boom. The expanse of space where the woman stood started to seethe. At the same time, an expanse of white light appeared above her. The expressions of the experts here changed drastically at the sight of this. Seamless Dao. The woman's expression changed drastically as well. The Seamless Dao. You've actually surpassed the Seamless Dao and attained the Seamless Dao. Xue Tong chuckled. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" As she spoke, she suddenly pressed down with her right hand. Boom. The white-robed woman's body instantly turned illusory. She was about to be sent into the seamless void. The white-robed woman was horrified. She opened her palm and a small golden bell appeared in her hand. In the next instant, the small golden bell transformed into a golden light that enveloped her. Under the envelopment of the golden light, the white-robed woman was protected. Xue Tong licked his candied fruit and then he smiled. "So it's the divine bell. Congratulations on becoming the patriarch of the 9 Heavens clan." The woman in the white dress stared fixedly at Xue Tong. "What exactly do you want?" Xue Tong smiled. "To collect a debt." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly tapped forward with her finger, and a ray of blood-red light instantly smashed against the divine bell. Bang! The divine bell shattered, and then Xue Tong pressed down lightly with her right hand. A powerful force enveloped the woman in the white dress and was about to strike her into the seamless Dao. However, a powerful aura suddenly appeared here. Bang! Crimson Eye retreated 10,000 feet away without a sound. Yi Xian gazed towards the distance and noticed that an old man had suddenly appeared behind the woman in the white dress. All the experts of the 9 Heavens clan bowed when they saw the old man. Patriarch. The patriarch. Yi Xian's face fell when he heard this. So she's still alive. That little girl Xue Tong was tricked. The patriarch of the 9 Heavens clan gazed at Xue Tong while a complicated expression flashed through his eyes. "You've actually attained the seamless Dao." Xue Tong put the candied fruit away and said, Old fellow, you're still alive? The patriarch of the Nine Heavens clan had a complicated expression on his face. I'd intended to let you live, but unfortunately, you refused to change. Since it's like that, then I have no choice but to end you with my own 2 hands. As he spoke, he raised his right hand slowly and pressed it down lightly. In an instant, the expressions of the experts of the Nine Heavens clan changed drastically. Bloodline pressure. The patriarch of the Nine Heavens clan intends to crush Xue Tong with his bloodline. Xue Tong's figure suddenly started trembling violently. The powerful bloodline pressure was on the verge of crushing her, and she couldn't resist it at all. Because it came from her bloodline pressure and she couldn't do anything unless she emptied her blood. But that was clearly impossible. Meanwhile, she suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side and she gazed at Yi Xian. Are you a friend? Yi Xian was about to speak when Xue Tong suddenly said, lend me some blood. As she spoke, she patted Yi Xian lightly with her right hand. Boom. In an instant, blood spurted out of Yi Xian's mouth like a fountain, and under Xue Tong's control, Yi Xian's blood began to boil. In an instant, an extremely terrifying bloodline pressure swept through the Nine Heavens realm. In an instant, the surrounding spacetime was shattered, and even the 8th layer of spacetime was annihilated at this moment. At the same time, the experts of the Nine Heavens clan felt their blood boil. Then all the experts of the Nine Heavens clan knelt on the ground and trembled. Bloodline submission. This was the submission of one bloodline to another bloodline. Yi Xian was petrified at the sight of this. Is my bloodline so terrifying? His face darkened as if he had thought of something. Damn it. His bloodline has definitely been suppressed or sealed by his father. This bastard. Chapter 1895. Bloodline pressure. As soon as Yi Xian's bloodline pressure appeared, even the patriarch of the Nine Heaven clan's bloodline pressure was instantly suppressed. The patriarch's eyes were filled with disbelief and he spoke with a trembling voice. What bloodline is that? Xue Tong turned around to gaze at Yi Xian and he grinned. That old bastard is asking you what bloodline it is. Yi Xian fell silent. He knew why Xue Tong hadn't killed him and had even brought him here. His bloodline. Xue Tong wanted to use the energy of his bloodline. Meanwhile, Xue Tong chuckled. You seem to be unaware of how terrifying your bloodline is. Yi Xian nodded. Xue Tong gazed at Yi Xian. Then you should thank me. Because I can unseal a portion of the power of your bloodline. As she spoke, she turned around to gaze at the patriarch of the Nine Heaven clan. If it wasn't for that trace of ancestral blood within you, then killing you would be as easy as crushing an ant. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly waved her right hand. Bang! The space where the patriarch of the Nine Heaven clan resided fell into the void, and he was just about to attack when Xue Tong pressed her right hand down once more. Rumble! The patriarch's body collapsed into pieces and only his soul remained. The expressions of the experts of the Nine Heaven clan changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. They wanted to attack, but they were completely suppressed by Yi Xian's bloodline, and they didn't even have the ability to resist. The reason the patriarch of the Nine Heaven clan hadn't been able to fight back was mostly because of the energy of his bloodline. Yi Xian's bloodline had suppressed the trace of ancestral blood within him, and he couldn't bring forth his full strength without it. The patriarch of the Nine Heaven clan who only had his soul left stared fixedly at Xue Tong. Unfilial bastard. Are you trying to kill your father? Xue Tong licked her lips and said, I'll send you off in advance. As soon as she spoke, she suddenly swung her fist. Bang! The patriarch of the Nine Heaven clan was blasted into nothingness. The faces of the experts from the Nine Heavens race instantly turned pale. The patriarch was gone. Meanwhile, Xue Tong turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. The feeling of patricide isn't bad. You can give it a try as well. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, If my father is as strong as your father, perhaps I can try. Xue Tong smiled, then turned to look at the woman in the white dress. The woman in the white dress stared at Xue Tong without saying a word. Xue Tong waved his right hand. Boom. The woman in the white dress was directly erased. Blood Eye smiled and said, Follow me. As soon as she finished speaking, she walked off into the distance. The space around her started to turn illusory as the experts from the Nine Heavens clan started to disappear. Under the suppression of Yi Xian's bloodline power, the experts of the Nine Heavens tribe had no way of resisting. Of course, this was because Crimson Eye was strong enough to unleash the power of Yi Xian's bloodline. If Yi Xian used it himself, it definitely wouldn't be so terrifying. Meanwhile, Xue Tong spoke abruptly, "You don't seem to know how formidable your bloodline is, right?" Yi Xian nodded. Xue Tong glanced at Yi Xian. "Do you know how terrifying your bloodline power is?" Yi Xian shook his head. Xue Tong smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. Yi Xian asked, "How terrifying is it?" Xue Tong said softly, "When I activated your bloodline power just now, it wasn't even 10% of its true power. Less than 10%. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Not even 10% was enough to suppress the bloodline of the Nine Heavens clan? Did I underestimate my father's strength a little? Xue Tong said again, "Your father is very powerful." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Xue Tong, the reason you didn't kill me was because of my bloodline power, right?" Xue Tong nodded. "You're not an ordinary person. If I kill you, I'll be in big trouble." Yi Xian nodded. "So you chose to be friends with me?" Xue Tong glanced at Yi Xian. "Otherwise, do you really think I would be stupid enough to spend 100,000 soul crystals to buy 2 of your candied fruits?" Yi Xian was speechless. Xue Tong suddenly stopped in her tracks. At this moment, she and Yi Xian were already in front of a large hall, and she looked at Yi Xian. "Do you know what this place is?" Yi Xian shook his head. Xue Tong said, "This is the Nine Heavens clan's treasure vault, and there are many divine items inside." Hearing this, Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Let's go in and take a look." Even though he said that, he didn't go in. Instead, he waited for Xue Tong to go in first. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't go in first, Xue Tong licked the candied fruits and said, "You're very smart." As she spoke, she walked towards the hall. As soon as she stepped in, a white light suddenly surged over. Xue Tong flicked her sleeve. Boom. The white light was instantly obliterated. Xue Tong looked at Yi Xian. "If you had charged in just now, even if you didn't die, your body would have been destroyed." As she spoke, she walked in. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he followed her in. As soon as he entered the hall, Yi Xian was stunned. The entire hall was filled with all sorts of divine items, and it was obvious that they weren't ordinary at a glance. Meanwhile, Xue Tong suddenly said, "Every single divine item here is worth at least 1,000,000 soul crystals. There are at least 1,000 of them here, and all of them belong to the Nine Heavens clan. Now I'll give them all to you." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "You're giving them all to me?" Xue Tong licked the candied fruits. "Yes." Yi Xian glanced at Xue Tong. "Why?" Xue Tong blinked. "We're friends." Yi Xian shook his head. "As if I'd believe you." Xue Tong smiled. "Do you want them or not?" Yi Xian immediately said, "Of course." As he spoke, he put away the divine items. Actually, he wasn't too tempted. This was because he had a super divine item in his body, the Xianxia sword. Of course, these divine items would be of great help to him now. Xue Tong continued to walk inside, and soon she arrived in front of a stone door. The stone door trembled violently, and then a golden seal suddenly flew out from the stone door. Xue Tong punched out. Boom. The stone door was smashed into pieces. Yi Xian looked at the stone door curiously. There must be some kind of treasure inside. However, when he saw the scene inside the stone door, he was stunned. There was no treasure behind the stone door. There was only a woman inside. Her 4 limbs were tightly bound by chains. Not only that, she was no longer breathing. At this moment, Xue Tong walked in front of the woman and looked at her without saying a word. Yi Xian glanced at Xue Tong, then slowly retreated from the stone door. After a while, Xue Tong walked out of the stone door. She walked to Yi Xian's side and said softly, "The one inside is my mother. She was imprisoned when I was 6 years old until she died." Yi Xian asked in a low voice, "Why?" Xue Tong said, "My mother didn't like my father. She liked someone else. Although she married my father, she didn't have my father in her heart." Yi Xian asked, "So your father imprisoned her?" Xue Tong nodded, "Yes." At this point she looked at Yi Xian. "Men are all bad, don't you think so?" Yi Xian nodded, "Except me." Xue Tong looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian blinked. "You don't think I'm good?" Xue Tong licked the candied fruit and asked, "How many women do you have?" Yi Xian said nothing. Xue Tong raised 2 fingers. "More than 2. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, "I'm actually a very loyal man, but because I'm too outstanding, many women can't help but fall in love with me. I'm actually very troubled, sigh." Shui Tong looked at Yi Xian without saying a word and just looked at him. Yi Xian felt a little uncomfortable being looked at. Shui Tong, what do you plan to do next? Shui Tong said, I want to go somewhere, do you want to come with me? Yi Xian immediately shook his head. No, I have other things to do. He didn't want to go with this little girl. He just wanted to find a place to cultivate, reach the 20th phase and then find a way to unseal the green profound sword. Shui Tong suddenly said, I can guide you. Yi Xian glanced at Shui Tong. Do you have any conditions? Shui Tong nodded. Come with me. Yi Xian was puzzled. What for? Shui Tong said, to play. Yi Xian didn't say anything. Shui Tong licked his sugar-coated haw and then said, if I guide you, you can reach the 20th phase in less than half a year, and reach the seamless realm in 3 years. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Shui Tong, are the seamless realm and the seamless path different? Shui Tong nodded. They're worlds apart. Yi Xian asked, what's the difference? Shui Tong thought for a moment and then said, the undead are the seamless realm and I am the seamless path. Do you understand? Yi Xian fell silent. The undead emperors were the seamless realm and Shui Tong was the seamless path. A single look from Shui Tong could make an undead emperor kneel and tremble in fear. Shui Tong said, not only that, I can also help you completely awaken your bloodline. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Miss Shui Tong, can you tell me where you're going? Why are you bringing me along? Shui Tong blinked. You'll know when we get there. Yi Xian didn't say anything. Shui Tong continued, are you going or not? If you don't, I won't force you. Yi Xian still didn't say anything. Shui Tong continued, if you cultivate normally, you'll need at least a few hundred years to reach the 20th phase. Not only that, but you'll also need a large number of soul crystals before long. But if you follow me, not only will you receive my guidance, but you won't have to worry about cultivation resources. She glanced at Yi Xian as she spoke. Having someone to guide you is completely different from not having anyone to guide you. Do you understand? Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Shui Tong, I'll follow you from now on. Shui Tong nodded. Let's go. With that, she turned to leave but stopped after taking a few steps. You have to do me a favor first. Yi Xian asked, what favor? At this time, a voice suddenly sounded from behind him. She probably wants you to help her deal with me. Yi Xian turned around and an old man had appeared not far away. The old man sized up Yi Xian. Is it your bloodline that suppressed my 9 Heavens clan's bloodline? Yi Xian said in a low voice. You are? The old man said, an ancestor of the 9 Heavens clan. Yi Xian was speechless. Shui Tong walked over to Yi Xian, glanced at the old man and then said, descend with your main body. Yi Xian said in a low voice, can you defeat him? Shui Tong thought for a moment and then said, even if I can't defeat him, I can still escape. What are you going to do? Yi Xian looked at Shui Tong with a shocked expression. You're not going to take me with you? Shui Tong blinked. I can take you with me, but you have to give me some benefits. Yi Xian. Chapter 1896. Benefits. Yi Xian's expression was quite unsightly because she was actually trying to extort him. Right at this moment, the old man suddenly smiled. Don't panic. She needs your help. Yi Xian gazed at the old man and the old man smiled. Her cultivation is the same as mine, but her bloodline is restrained by me. So she'll suffer a loss if she doesn't have your help. Yi Xian gazed at Shui Tong. Shui Tong licked his candied fruit and remained silent. The old man suddenly said, young brother, can you take a look at your bloodline? Yi Xian nodded. He opened his palm and a drop of blood essence floated out slowly. The old man's expression instantly became solemn when he laid eyes on it. Shui Tong glanced at the old man and remained silent. A short while later, the old man spoke in a low voice. May I know who your ancestor is? Yi Xian smiled. Senior, you definitely don't know him. The old man nodded slightly and then he glanced at Shui Tong and said, young brother, you have to be careful. Yi Xian smiled. Are you worried about Miss Shui Tong? The old man said, it isn't just her. There are many unknown enemies as well. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Unknown enemies? Senior, I've just arrived here and haven't made any enemies, so how could there be unknown enemies? The old man gazed at Yi Xian. There are some mysterious and formidable special powers in the boundless universe. The methods of cultivation of these powers are unlike ordinary people. They mainly cultivate their bloodlines and they frequently devour bloodlines. Young brother, your bloodline is so special, so you're exactly their target. Yi Xian's face fell. Since my bloodline is so terrifying, why would they dare to look for trouble with me? The old man smiled. Do they know that your ancestor is still alive? Yi Xian fell silent. Indeed. No one else knows that my father is still alive. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian gazed at Xue Tong. You didn't kill me because you knew my father was still alive. Xue Tong was just about to speak when the old man smiled. Of course. Otherwise she would have devoured your bloodline a long time ago. If she devoured your bloodline, her strength would increase by at least 10 times. Yi Xian sighed in a low voice. Xue Tong, I treat you as a friend. Blood Eye licked the candied haws. 2 candied haws for 100,000 soul crystals. You're such a good friend. Yi Xian was speechless. Crimson Eye looked at the elder in the distance. He's trying to sow discord between us. Also, he wants to devour your bloodline. However, he's very smart. Firstly, with me here, he knows he can't do it. Secondly, he's also afraid of the person behind you. I can sense the desire in his eyes. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. He wants to devour you too. Yi Xian smiled and said, I finally understand. All of you want to devour my bloodline. The old man smiled and said, You've misunderstood. As soon as he finished speaking, he glanced at Xue Tong before turning around and leaving. Yi Xian looked at the old man in the distance and did not say anything. Xue Tong licked the candied haws and said, It won't be long before news of your special bloodline will spread throughout the universe. Yi Xian was puzzled. What? Xue Tong looked at Yi Xian. What do you think he's here for? To avenge the Nine Heavens clan? Though his true goal is you. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Just because of my bloodline? Xue Tong nodded. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, Can I devour other people's bloodlines? Hearing this, Xue Tong frowned slightly. After a moment, she looked at Yi Xian and asked, Can't I? The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. If others could devour him, then he could also devour others. Who was afraid of bloodlines? At this moment, Xue Tong suddenly said, Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. Yi Xian followed. On the way, Yi Xian was a little curious. Miss Xue Tong, after the 20th stage is the Seamless Realm, and after the Seamless Realm is the Seamless Dao? Xue Tong nodded. Yi Xian said in a low voice, There is only a difference of 1 stage between the Seamless Dao, but the difference in power is so great? Xue Tong said, The difference between the two is like heaven and earth. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, What about above the Seamless Dao? Xue Tong was silent for a moment. Deities. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Deities. Xue Tong nodded. An existence that surpasses the Dao of spacetime. However, it is only a legend. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Then he asked, Miss Xue Tong, what universe is this? Xue Tong glanced at Yi Xian. The Seamless Universe, a level 7 civilization. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Have you seen a level 8 civilization before? Xue Tong said, I have. Yi Xian was stunned. Then he said in shock, You have? Xue Tong nodded. You will see it soon. Yi Xian didn't understand. Just as he was about to ask, Xue Tong suddenly said, Please be quiet. Yi Xian was speechless. After a moment, Xue Tong suddenly said, Someone is following us. Yi Xian looked around. He didn't find anything. Xue Tong opened his palm and pressed it down. Boom. Thousands of meters away, the space there suddenly exploded apart, and then an old man retreated explosively. He retreated for an entire 30 kilometers before he finally stopped. Xue Tong looked at the old man. Ling clan. The old man said in a low voice, Sir, we have no intention of becoming enemies with you. Xue Tong nodded. I know. Your Ling clan's target is the little guy beside me. The old man stared at Xue Tong without saying anything. Xue Tong turned to look at Yi Xian. Look, the matter of your bloodline has already spread. Yi Xian smiled. It was your ancestor who did it. He wanted to use others to test me, right? Xue Tong nodded. How smart. Yi Xian was about to speak when the old man suddenly disappeared. Xue Tong said, The Ling clan is comparable in strength to the Nine Heavens clan. It is also a special clan with a very powerful bloodline. Of course, the Ling clan isn't scary. The ones you really need to be careful of are the Jiaxin clan. This clan's bloodline is extremely powerful, and they like to devour bloodlines. If I'm not wrong, they should be investigating you by now. Yi Xian looked at Xue Tong. Why didn't you devour my bloodline? Xue Tong glanced at Yi Xian. First, I didn't rely on my bloodline. Second, when I entered your Xiaota, I discovered some secrets. However, others don't know these secrets, understand? Yi Xian was speechless. Xue Tong said, don't think too much about it for now. I can protect you for a period of time. Let's go. 2 hours later, Xue Tong brought Yi Xian to a star field. There were many buildings floating in this star field and it was very messy. Yi Xian looked around. This is... Xue Tong pointed at the ruins in the distance. A former level 8 civilization. Yi Xian looked at the ruins in the distance. Among the ruins, a dilapidated hall could be vaguely seen. Other than that, there were dozens of stone pillars that were tens of thousands of meters tall standing around it. Although these stone pillars were tens of thousands of meters tall, they seemed rather small in the endless starry sky. Xue Tong suddenly said, do you see that hall? No one has been able to approach it until now. Yi Xian looked at Xue Tong. You don't want me to go, do you? Xue Tong nodded. Yi Xian's face darkened. What makes you think I can go in? Xue Tong thought for a moment and said, let's give it a try. Yi Xian was speechless. Xue Tong said, let's go. As she spoke, she started walking towards the distance. Yi Xian glanced at Xue Tong before following her. When they were 3 kilometers away from the hall, a shadow suddenly walked out from within it. The shadow walked slowly towards Yi Xian and Xue Tong while holding a sword in its hand. The shadow looked at Xue Tong and Yi Xian. Stop. Xue Tong glanced at the shadow and then he looked at Yi Xian. You go talk to him. Yi Xian's face darkened. Why should I go talk to him? Xue Tong said, I can't. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Do you think I can? Xue Tong licked his candied fruit and said, you can give it a try. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. You can't defeat him? Xue Tong shook his head. I can't. Yi Xian gazed at the shadow. Meanwhile, the shadow said, leave. Xue Tong gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian gazed at the shadow and was about to speak. However, the shadow suddenly swung its sword. Bang. Yi Xian didn't even have time to react before Xue Tong was slashed over 30 kilometers away. After that, the shadow gazed at Yi Xian. The shadow gazed at Yi Xian for a short while before it said, please. As he spoke, he moved to the side and made a gesture of invitation. Yi Xian fell silent. Could I really be the legendary child of destiny? If that's true, then doesn't it mean that I can really beat my dad up in the future? The shadow continued, please. Yi Xian glanced at the shadow and then he walked towards the hall in the distance. On the other side, Xue Tong wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and continued to lick the candied fruit. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, the ancestor of the 9 Heavens clan appeared not far from Xue Tong. In addition, there was a middle-aged man with 3 tails. This person was the patriarch of the Nashan clan Nagaching. Xue Tong glanced at Nagaching but didn't speak. Nagaching smiled. So Miss Xue Tong didn't devour that little guy's bloodline because you wanted him to enter the Divine Spirit Palace. Xue Tong continued to lick the candied fruit and didn't speak. Nagaching looked at the Divine Spirit Palace in the distance. After a while, he looked at the shadow guarding there and said softly, Miss Xue Tong, can you tell me why he can enter the Divine Spirit Palace? The patriarch of the 9 Heavens clan also looked at Xue Tong. This was also what he was most curious about. After a moment of silence, Xue Tong said, if you devour his bloodline, your strength will increase by at least 10 times. You can even break through the seamless Tao and reach the Divine Spirit realm. Nagaching looked at Xue Tong and said with a smile, this person is not simple. If we touch him, we might bring disaster upon ourselves. Xue Tong said, will you give up? After a moment of silence, Nagaching said, is there anyone behind him? Xue Tong shook his head. No. Nagaching stared at Xue Tong. Are you sure? Xue Tong glanced at Xue Tong. It's up to you whether you want to touch him or not. After a moment of silence, Nagaching said with a smile, Miss Xue Tong, why don't you touch him? Let me guess. You must have discovered something. Otherwise, that young man wouldn't have survived until now. As he said this, he looked at the Divine Spirit Palace in the distance. That young man can enter the Divine Spirit Palace. This means that his identity is definitely not ordinary. As Miss Xue Tong said, if I devour his bloodline, I might reach the divine spirit realm, but I might also be doomed. After saying this, he smiled slightly. It's better not to touch this kind of second generation. This kind of young man usually has an old man behind him or even a group of old men. We can't afford to offend him. P.S. I've just returned home recently. There are too many things to do, so I can't update properly. I go home once a year. When I get home, people ask me what I do, how much money I make. I'm a little embarrassed. I make 4,000 or 5,000 a month, but I'm embarrassed to say. Sigh, I'll work harder next year and try to buy a four-wheeled one. Chapter 1897. Xuetong glanced at Nagaqing and did not speak. The Nine Heavens clan leader smiled. Clan leader Qing is still so cautious. Nagaqing smiled. The lives of tens of thousands of clansmen depend on me. I have to be careful. He looked at the Divine Spirit Palace in the distance. This young man is not simple to be invited by the Divine Spirit Palace. The Nine Heavens clan leader was silent. The reason why he informed Nagaqing was to let Naxian clan test Yi Xian's strength. Unfortunately, Naxian clan did not fall for it. What a pity. The Nine Heavens clan leader sighed. Nagaqing glanced at the Nine Heavens clan leader and sneered. Xuetong licked his candied fruit and did not speak. No one knew what he was thinking. In the distance, Yi Xian came to the front of the palace. He looked up at the top of the palace. There were 3 words. Divine Spirit Palace. Divine Spirit Palace? Yi Xian frowned. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from inside the palace. Come in. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian walked into the palace. There was a woman sitting cross-legged in the palace. The woman wore a white dress and had shoulder-length hair. Her facial features were exquisite. Beautiful. This was Yi Xian's first impression. In front of the woman there was a chessboard. The woman looked at Yi Xian. Fellow Daoist, please sit. Fellow Daoist? Yi Xian's expression was a little strange. This woman called him fellow Daoist? Whatever. A fellow Daoist is a fellow Daoist. Yi Xian sat in front of the woman. The woman looked at Yi Xian. Please. Obviously she wanted Yi Xian to play chess. Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he picked up a chess piece and put it down. The woman put down a chess piece. Fellow Daoist, you have 9 stages in your life chart. It's really rare. Yi Xian frowned. Life chart? 9 stages? The woman smiled. You don't know. Yi Xian shook his head. The woman smiled faintly. After the Divine Spirit Realm is the Fate Realm, which is also the realm of life cultivation. Life cultivation is divided into 10 stages. The higher the rank, the harder the fate and the stronger the strength. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I'm only 15 stages. He hasn't even reached the fate realm yet. The woman smiled and said, there are 2 kinds of fate. The first is cultivated and the second is innate fate. Some people are born with a hard fate and you should belong to the latter. Yi Xian asked, what's the use? The woman raised a chess piece and placed it down. How did you manage to survive until now? It's because my life is tough. Yi Xian was silent. The woman suddenly said, please excuse me. As she spoke, she gently moved her jade-like finger. In an instant, the blood in Yi Xian's body began to boil. Bloodline power activated. The woman's expression gradually became solemn when she saw Yi Xian's bloodline power. A moment later, she withdrew her hand and said, I've never seen such a bloodline before. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian and said, no wonder your fate is so tough. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He knew that the reason why his fate was tough was because of his father and Qing. Was he really a second-generation heir? The woman said again, you have to be careful. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why do you say that? The woman said, firstly, your bloodline is extremely special. After some powerful people devour your bloodline, they will obtain great benefits. This benefit is enough to change their fate. Secondly, your birth providence is a connate birth providence. In other words, your birth providence can be taken and transferred to someone else. Yi Xian frowned. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. He frowned. Fate can be transferred? The woman nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, according to Senior, my fate is 9 stages. Isn't that very tough? Since it's so tough, how can it be taken away? The woman said, your fate is tough, but your strength is very weak. Yi Xian, the woman said again, moreover, some people's fate may be tougher than yours. There are also strong and weak people with 9 stages. Apart from that, there are many powerhouses with 9 stages and there are 10 above 9 stages. Xian was silent. His entire body was a treasure. The woman said again, "Of course your bloodline is so special and your fate is so tough. Ordinary people don't dare to touch you. However, those who dare to touch you are either super powerhouses or super forces." Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, I think your fate is more than 9 stages." Xian laughed in his heart. "Why?" Xiao Ta said, "Your fate is linked to Sister Tianming. How can it be a mere 9 stages?" "Xian," Xiao Ta said, "My fate is definitely more than 9 stages. Because I am linked to young master. Being with young master is equivalent to being with Sister Tianming. So I am invincible." "Xian," Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Xiao Ta, I want to change my name." Xian frowned. "Change your name? What name?" Xiao Ta said, "Destiny's Tower." Xian was dumbfounded. Destiny's Tower? This Xiao Ta was preparing to hug Qing'er's thigh to the end. Xiao Ta said excitedly, "Yes, I will be called Destiny's Tower from now on." Xian. At this time the woman in front of Xian suddenly said, "Mister, I have a favor to ask." Xian looked at the woman. "What is it?" The woman opened her palm and a storage ring appeared in her hand. "This is called the God Ring. It is the token of our divine sect leader. Seeing this ring is like seeing the sect leader." Saying that, she put the God Ring in front of Xian. "Help me bring it to divine sect." Xian was silent. The woman smiled slightly. "Of course I won't ask for your help for free. There are benefits." Xian asked subconsciously, "What benefits?" The woman smiled. "Do you remember the sword wielder you saw before you came in?" Xian nodded. The woman looked at Xian. "He is my sword slave and his strength is at the divine spirit realm. If you are willing to help, he will listen to your commands in the future. Not only that, there are also 3 sword slaves in this storage ring and they are all at the divine spirit realm. In addition, I will also give you an inheritance that will allow you to easily reach the seamless path." Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, there is something I don't understand. That is, why don't you bring it to divine sect yourself? Why do you want me to do it?" The woman smiled. "I have already fallen. If I leave this place I will immediately die." Xian hesitated, then asked, "As far as I know, Senior is from a level 8 civilization?" The woman nodded, "Yes." Xian continued to ask, "Then why did Senior die?" The woman didn't speak. Xian just looked at the woman, not saying anything. Great benefits often meant great danger at the same time. At this time the woman smiled. "Can I not say?" Xian nodded, "Yes. But Senior, I might not be able to help you. After all, my strength is low and if I help Senior I might be overestimating myself." After a moment of silence the woman said, "He was killed." Killed. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. The corner of Xian's mouth twitched. "Damn, you were killed even though you were so strong and you want me to help you? I can't do this." At this time the woman said, "Don't worry, he has also fallen." Xian blinked his eyes. "Die together?" The woman nodded. "Die together. So you can rest assured." Xian didn't speak. The woman said, "You need to become stronger, right?" Xian nodded. The woman smiled. "It's just a ring. As long as you don't cause trouble nothing will happen." After a moment of silence Xian stood up and smiled. "Okay." The woman pointed at the ring. "Wear this ring. This ring has the route to divine sect. Apart from that you will also receive an inheritance. Not only that, there are billions of soul crystals for you to use." Xian looked at the woman. "Senior won't trick me, right?" The woman smiled. "I will." Xian laughed. "Thank you for your honesty, Senior." With that he turned and left. After Xian disappeared in the distance, the woman slowly closed her eyes. At the same time her body gradually became illusory. After a while a mosquito-like voice suddenly rang out. "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust." Not long after Xian left the Sacred Spirit Palace, the Sacred Spirit Palace behind him disappeared bit by bit. He knew that the woman was completely gone. Xian looked at the ring on his finger. The 4 sword slaves were in the ring. Apart from that, there were billions of soul crystals in the ring. It could be said that he didn't need to worry about cultivation resources anymore. Most importantly, there was an inheritance in the ring. At this time Shui Tong and the other two suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Shui Tong looked at Yi Xian. "You're out." Yi Xian smiled. "Yes." Naga Qing suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, I am Naga Qing, the patriarch of Nashan clan." Yi Xian looked at Naga Qing and smiled. "Senior, don't tell me you want to devour my bloodline?" Naga Qing laughed. "Young Master Yi, you really know how to joke." Yi Xian blinked. "You really don't want to devour?" Naga Qing shook his head. "Young Master Yi, don't joke." Yi Xian smiled and looked at Shui Tong. "I'm leaving." Shui Tong continued to lick the candied fruit, not saying a word. Yi Xian said, "If you want to devour my bloodline, this is your last chance." Shui Tong looked at Yi Xian, not saying a word. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Last chance." Shui Tong was silent. Yi Xian laughed and turned to leave. The moment Yi Xian turned around, the smiles on the faces of the Nine Heavens clan leader and Naga Qing gradually disappeared. At this time Naga Qing suddenly shook his head. "I can't afford to offend you." After saying that he turned around and left. At this moment he really gave up. Shui Tong also turned around and left. At this time the Nine Heavens clan leader suddenly laughed. "The two of you please wait." Naga Qing and Shui Tong stopped and looked at the Nine Heavens clan leader. The Nine Heavens clan leader looked at Yi Xian in the distance and said with a smile, "Young Master Yi, please wait." Yi Xian turned to look at the Nine Heavens clan leader and said with a smile, "All right." The Nine Heavens clan leader looked at Yi Xian. "I know that the person behind young Master Yi is not simple, but young Master Yi's bloodline is too special. Moreover, young Master Yi obtained something from the Divine Spirit Palace, so my friend and I want to make a bet. Come out and meet young Master Yi." As soon as he finished speaking, terrifying auras suddenly appeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 1898. Along with the appearance of those terrifying auras, 16 super experts appeared. Among them there were 3 seamless Dao experts and the rest were all seamless realm experts. Naga Qing looked at the old man in the lead and frowned. Ancient clan. Ancient clan. This was also a super force, and its strength was no weaker than the Na Celestial clan. Shui Tong glanced at the Nine Heavens clan patriarch and continued to lick her candied fruit. The Nine Heavens clan patriarch looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, the temptation of your bloodline is too great. Old man, you've lived for so many years and you've lived long enough. If you can't break through and reach the divine spirit realm, there's no point in continuing to live. So, I want to give it a try." Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." The Nine Heavens clan patriarch laughed and then looked at Naga Qing. "Patriarch Qing, your Na Celestial clan's bloodline has reached a bottleneck, and breaking through is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This human before you is an opportunity for your Na Celestial clan. So long as you devour his bloodline, your Na Celestial clan will definitely rise to a higher level and achieve glory." Naga Qing glanced at Yi Xian and then he smiled. No. Nine Heavens clan patriarch, I, Naga Qing, have no ambition. I just want to lead my clan and live well. Please." The Nine Heavens clan patriarch smiled. "I won't force you." As he spoke he looked at Shui Tong. "What about you?" Shui Tong didn't speak. The Nine Heavens clan patriarch wanted to say something, but the ancient clan patriarch suddenly smiled. "Say no more. The two of them want this human's bloodline and the divine items in the Divine Spirit Palace, but they are afraid of wolves in front and tigers behind. Why should we cooperate with them?" As he spoke he looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, you have no enmity with the ancient clan, but the power of your bloodline is too tempting, so I'm sorry for offending you." As soon as he finished speaking he suddenly disappeared on the spot. At the same time the experts beside him also rushed out. Yi Xian stood on the spot, and when the ancient clan patriarch arrived in front of Yi Xian, a sword ray suddenly appeared. Boom! Before anyone could react, the Gu clan patriarch was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away, and as soon as he stopped, his body instantly shattered. As for the ancient race experts that had rushed towards Yi Xian, other than 2 seamless experts, the rest were all killed. Everyone was dumbfounded. Naga Qing took a deep look at the sword slave in front of Yi Xian, and his eyes flashed with fear and shock. He never thought that the guard of the Divine Spirit Temple would actually follow Yi Xian. How did this guy do it? Blood Eye glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. On the other side, the patriarch of the Nine Heavens clan had an extremely ugly expression on his face. Why are the guards of the Divine Spirit Palace following Zhou Xian? In the distance, the ancient race leader looked at Zhou Xian in disbelief. Why is the Sacred Spirit Palace guard following you? Zhou Xian thought for a moment and said, personal charm. The ancient race leader raged, bullshit. At this moment, the sword slave suddenly disappeared on the spot. Before the Gu clan's patriarch could react, a sword had pierced through his forehead. Although the gap between the seamless Dao and the half-step Divine Spirit realm wasn't as huge as the Divine Spirit realm, it was still like heaven and earth. When they saw this, the remaining two seamless Dao experts turned around and ran, but they were just about to run when two rays of sword light slashed their bodies. Boom. Two powerhouses of the seamless Dao were directly killed. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. Looking at this scene, Zhou Xian could not help but look at Xue Tong, who was at the side. Back then, Xue Tong had taken a blow from the sword slave head-on. However, Xue Tong did not die and his physical body did not even shatter. It seemed that although Blood Eye was... This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Although he was also a seamless Dao expert, his strength was much stronger. No, this guy was hiding his strength. Zhou Xian couldn't help but look at Blood Eye, and Blood Eye grinned. At this moment, the Nine Heavens clan's patriarch suddenly said, young friend, I am willing to follow you and serve you. Zhou Xian suddenly smiled and said, are you worthy? As soon as he finished speaking, the sword slave disappeared on the spot. A sword pierced through the Nine Heavens clan's patriarch's forehead. Just as the sword slave was about to destroy the Nine Heavens clan's patriarch, Blood Eye suddenly said, you can devour his bloodline. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment, then appeared in front of the Nine Heavens clan's patriarch and slapped his shoulder. Bang! The Nine Heavens clan's patriarch's body shattered and blood gushed out. Zhou Xian opened his right hand and the blood flowed into his palm. Soon he absorbed all the blood. A moment later, Zhou Xian frowned and looked at Blood Eye. There's no reaction. Blood Eye glanced at Zhou Xian and didn't say anything. Zhou Xian was puzzled and wanted to ask more questions. At this moment, Naga Qing suddenly smiled and said, young Master Yi, the reason you didn't react is because his bloodline is too weak. No, it's because your bloodline is too strong. His bloodline has no effect on yours. Too strong. Zhou Xian smiled and said, you too, I have to take my leave. Blood Eye suddenly said, what did you get? Naga Qing looked at Zhou Xian. He was also curious about what Zhou Xian had encountered in the Divine Spirit Palace. Zhou Xian blinked. I'm not telling you. After saying that, he turned and left. Blood Eye suddenly said, I'll go with you. Zhou Xian turned and looked at Blood Eye. Go with me. Blood Eye nodded. Zhou Xian was silent for a moment, then said, all right. He decided to take Blood Eye with him because he needed his help now. Although he had the inheritance of Divine Sect, his realm was too low. If there was someone to guide him, he could improve even faster. At this moment, Naga Qing suddenly said, young Master Yi, if you have time in the future, please come to the Xian clan as a guest. Zhou Xian smiled. All right. Naga Qing cupped his fists. See you later. Zhou Xian nodded, then turned and left with Blood Eye. After Zhou Xian and Blood Eye left, Naga Qing heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, he had thought of killing Zhou Xian just now. However, after seeing how calm Zhou Xian was, that thought disappeared without a trace. What did it mean to be so calm in front of so many powerhouses? It meant that he had nothing to fear. And his guess was correct. After a moment, the corner of Naga Qing's mouth raised slightly. Ancient clan. Nine Heavens clan. Now this divine universe belongs to the Xian clan. After saying that, he turned and left. To some extent, the Xian clan was the biggest winner. On the other side, in the starry sky, Zhou Xian was flying on his sword with Blood Eye by his side. About half an hour later, Zhou Xian looked around. This place was a dead star field, very quiet, suitable for cultivation. Zhou Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and looked at the storage ring on his finger. The next moment, a white light entered his brow. Boom. In an instant, countless information poured into his mind. Inheritance. Divine Sect inheritance. On the side, Blood Eye glanced at Zhou Xian, then turned to look at the end of the starry sky. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, Zhou Xian's body suddenly surged out. This chapter is not finished, please continue. A powerful aura appeared, causing the surrounding starry sky to tremble. Blood Eye looked at Zhou Xian. Xian suddenly took out countless soul crystals and began to absorb them like crazy. About 10 days later, Xian's aura suddenly soared. Boom. As the starry sky around him fluctuated, Xian reached the 16th phase. Xian was about to rush to the next phase when Blood Eye suddenly said, "If you continue like this, your realm will be unstable and there will be many hidden dangers." Xian looked at Blood Eye. "Then what should I do?" Blood Eye said, "Whether your realm is stable or not depends on your use of the Tao of Spacetime. You have reached the 16th phase, but your mastery of the Tao of Spacetime is still on the low side. You should familiarize yourself with each layer of spacetime and master them." Xian said solemnly, "Please advise me, Miss Blood Eye." Blood Eye nodded. She opened her palm and lightly swept it. In an instant she and Xian directly entered the 7th layer of spacetime. Blood Eye said, "You can perfectly fuse with the 6th layer of spacetime. There is no need to familiarize yourself with the 6th layer of spacetime and below. We will start from the 7th layer of spacetime. Now feel the spacetime pressure around you." Xian looked around with an incomparably solemn expression. He didn't dare to move at all. If not for Blood Eye, he might have been crushed as soon as he entered the 7th layer of spacetime. The spacetime pressure of the 7th layer of spacetime was at least 100 times stronger than the 6th layer. Blood Eye looked at Xian. "It's very simple. Fuse with the 7th layer of spacetime, then overlap the 1st to 7th layers of spacetime and use it in your sword skills. This way the power of your sword skills will increase countless times." Xian frowned slightly. "1st to 7th layers of spacetime?" Blood Eye nodded. Xian said solemnly, "I can only overlap the 1st to 5th layers of spacetime." Blood Eye said, "If you can't overlap multiple spacetime, even if you reach the 20th layer, you are still an ant." Xian looked at Blood Eye. "The Gu clan patriarch is also a seamless path cultivator and so are you. However, the gap between you and him is very big. Is this the reason?" Blood Eye nodded. Xian fell silent. The reason he could fuse with the 6th layer of spacetime was because of the green profound sword. But now he didn't have the green profound sword. Thinking of this, Xian's expression changed greatly. He suddenly realized that he was actually relying on the green profound sword to such an extent. Without the green profound sword, what should he do? Thinking of this, Xian suddenly broke out in cold sweat. He finally knew why his father had sealed the green profound sword. If he did not seal the Qingxian sword, he would never be able to leave the Qingxian sword. And that was the strength of the Qingxian sword, not his own strength. Thinking of this, Xian felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, his father had sealed the green profound sword. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would be enslaved by the sword in the future. Having a strong sword and a weak person was not a good thing. Beside him, Blood Eye suddenly said, "You have to try to fuse with the 7th layer of spacetime and then grasp it. As for the realm, it's actually not particularly important. The so-called realm is just a kind of restraint." Xian nodded. "Understood." Saying that, he slowly closed his eyes and began to feel the 7th layer of spacetime. Without the Qingxian sword, would he be unable to cultivate normally? He didn't believe it. When this thought arose, a powerful sword intent suddenly appeared on Xian's body. Ever since he obtained the green profound sword, his swordsmanship had not improved for a long time. But Xian didn't notice that in his sea of consciousness, the green profound sword was also trembling slightly. Xian didn't know that the green profound sword's strength did not rely on absorbing souls, but on absorbing his sword intent. The sword was strong because of the person. End of this chapter. Chapter 1899. The sword grew stronger because of its owner. In the past, Xian had always been relying on the green profound sword, and his strength had dropped by at least 80% without it. That was why the green-clothed man had sealed the green profound sword. When he understood this, the sword intent around Xian grew stronger and stronger, and it caused the deathly silent starry sky in the surroundings to seethe. Xue Tong's brows knit together slightly when he witnessed this scene. This fellow seems to have attained sudden enlightenment. Sudden enlightenment. It was rare for one to attain sudden enlightenment in one's life, but once one did, then it might change one's life. Right at this moment, Xian's sword intent entered the 7th level of space, and the spatial pressure there wasn't able to crush his sword intent. Conversely, his sword intent had actually fused into one with the 7th level of space under his control. Xue Tong frowned when he witnessed this scene. What's going on? The 7th level of space doesn't reject sword intent? When she thought up to here, she opened her palm and suddenly clenched it. In an instant, a strand of fist intent entered the 7th level of space. However, it vanished without a trace as soon as it entered the 7th level of space. Xue Tong couldn't help but gaze at Yi Xian when he witnessed this scene, and his eyes were filled with curiosity. However, he didn't disturb Yi Xian at this moment, because it was an extremely critical moment for Yi Xian. Just like that, around 3 days later, Yi Xian's sword intent had fused completely with the 7th level of space. Now he'd started to try to utilize his sword intent to fuse with it, but he noticed that it was very difficult. Fortunately, he still had the sword domain. A wisp of a smile arose on his face when he utilized the sword domain, because he noticed that he could utilize the sword domain to fuse with the 7th level of space. In the following period of time, Yi Xian started to slowly control the 7th level of space under Xue Tong's guidance. In the blink of an eye, a few months passed. On this day, Yi Xian stood in the starry sky while holding a sword in his hand. It wasn't the green profound sword, it was an extremely ordinary green profound sword. After a long moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly slashed down. The space in front of Yi Xian was suddenly torn apart along with the 7th layer of spacetime. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly took a step forward. No, as soon as he took a step forward, the sword domain appeared. In the next moment, the 7th layer of space was instantly torn into pieces by countless rays of light. Core sword domain. At this moment, Yi Xian opened his palm and the sword in his hand suddenly vanished. The space 3 kilometers away was suddenly torn apart by a strand of sword light. Space folding. The space folding of the 7th layer. Seeing this scene, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. Now he had finally folded the 7th layer of spacetime. Meanwhile, Xue Tong suddenly said, "Spatial folding?" Yi Xian looked at Xue Tong and nodded. "Yes." Xue Tong nodded but didn't say anything. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Do you have any suggestions?" Xue Tong said, "You've only folded spacetime. Do you know that spacetime can be folded again after being folded?" Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. Time and space are folded again and again? Xue Tong nodded. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Is that possible?" Xue Tong glanced at Yi Xian. "What do you think?" Yi Xian fell silent. Time and space are folded again and again. Xue Tong said, "Do you know why that guard's sword was so fast?" Yi Xian said, "Time and space are folded?" Xue Tong nodded. He's folded the 8th layer at least 4 times, and that's why his sword was able to instantly kill a seamless Dao expert. Because after time and space are folded 4 times, his speed isn't something that the seamless Dao can resist. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "How many times can time and space be folded?" Xue Tong looked at Yi Xian. Theoretically speaking, countless times. However, the difficulty increases by a few dozen times with every fold. Moreover, the further it goes, the more difficult it becomes. When she spoke up to this point, she licked her candied fruit and said, "The space-time Dao. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. It's not as simple as you think." Yi Xian nodded. "I've learned something new." Xue Tong said, "If you can fold time and space a second time, then with your current strength, killing a stage 20 expert is a piece of cake. Even a seamless realm expert isn't impossible." Yi Xian asked, "What if I can fold time and space 3 times?" Xue Tong said indifferently, "I can easily kill a seamless Dao expert." Yi Xian asked again, "What if I can fold time and space 4 times?" Xue Tong looked at Yi Xian, "I can easily kill a seamless Dao expert. Just like that guard in the Divine Spirit Palace." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." Xue Tong continued, "Folding time and space can't completely measure a person's strength. Besides folding time and space, there's also space-time distortion, space-time pressure, space-time overlap, space-time detonation, space-time black hole, space-time jump, etc. In short, the space-time Dao is boundlessly profound and mysterious." Yi Xian looked at Xue Tong. "What are you good at?" Xue Tong said indifferently, "A bit of everything." Yi Xian asked, "Are you good at it?" Xue Tong said, "I'm good at it." Yi Xian was speechless. Xue Tong said, "Take it slow." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Take it slow." As he said this, he sighed. Ever since Xiao Ta's ability was sealed by his father, his cultivation speed had slowed to a crawl. But there was nothing he could do. For now, besides Qing Er and Big Brother, there was probably no one who could undo his father's seal. Xuetong suddenly asked, "Where are you going?" Yi Xian smiled. "I'm going to Divine Sect to deliver something." Xuetong looked at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Yi Xian said, "Let's go." He was now at stage 16. If he continued to rush, it wouldn't be hard to reach stage 20. Not only did he have Divine Sect's inheritance, but he also had Xuetong's guidance. But he didn't want to be that fast. He wanted to slow down. Sword Dao. After his epiphany, his sword intent was improved and he used it to fuse with the seventh space. To put it simply, he wanted to improve his sword Dao. In fact, Crimson Eye was shocked at the moment. Under normal circumstances, Yi Xian should not have been able to enter the seventh space in time. However, not only could this guy enter the seventh space in time, but he could also communicate with the seventh space in time. Most importantly, this guy's sword skills were terrifying. Those sword skills could be said to have increased Yi Xian's battle strength by several times. What a mysterious guy. After a while, the two continued forward. 3 days later, the two arrived in front of a black hole. Yi Xian was about to enter when Xuetong suddenly said, "You want to go in?" Yi Xian nodded. Xuetong was silent. Yi Xian asked, "Dangerous?" Xuetong looked at Yi Xian. "Can't you feel it?" Yi Xian shook his head. Xuetong looked at Yi Xian. "How did you survive until now?" "By luck." Yi Xian was speechless. Xuetong looked at the black hole. The legendary level 8 civilization should be within it. With our current strength, entering it is equivalent to entering a pack of wolves. Understand? Yi Xian was slightly helpless. "Then what should we do?" "I promised someone to help deliver something." Xuetong thought for a moment and said, "Let's just keep a low profile." As soon as she finished speaking, she walked into the black hole. Yi Xian hurriedly followed her in. A few minutes later, Yi Xian and Xuetong appeared in an unknown starfield. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and said, "Let's go." As he spoke, he led Xuetong towards the right. 2 hours later, Yi Xian arrived before a mountain range. Meanwhile, Xuetong frowned. "There's the smell of blood." Yi Xian smelled blood as well and he looked towards the distance. Right at this moment, a palm that was over 100 kilometers long suddenly descended from the sky above the mountain range. If this chapter isn't finished, please keep going. In an instant, the entire mountain range shook. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed. Suddenly, an enormous golden barrier of light arose from the mountain range. Bang! The palm instantly shattered upon colliding with the barrier of light, and then it transformed into nothingness. A powerful wave of energy swept towards the surroundings, and in an instant space was obliterated. Yi Xian's face sank when he witnessed this scene. What happened? Xuetong gazed at Yi Xian. "It doesn't seem simple." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment and then he said, "Let's come back another day." Xuetong nodded. "Good idea." As soon as he finished speaking, they intended to flee. Right at this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Xuetong. Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. Meanwhile, the old man suddenly gazed at the ring on Yi Xian's finger, and his expression instantly changed drastically. "A divine ring." Yi Xian blinked. "You're from the Divine Sect?" The old man hurriedly bowed respectfully. "The Divine Sect's Li Muki greets the Sect Master." "Sect Master?" Yi Xian was stunned and then he hurriedly said, "You've misunderstood. I'm just here to deliver the ring. I'm not your Sect Master." As he spoke, he was about to take off the ring. However, he noticed to his astonishment that he couldn't take it off at all. "What's going on?" Yi Xian was quite stunned. Li Muki hurriedly bowed respectfully again. "Sect Master, please return to the sect with me." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "I'm really not your Sect Master. I was just entrusted by your Sect Master to deliver the ring back to you. You absolutely must not misunderstand." Li Muki gazed at Yi Xian. "You're wearing the Sect Master's ring. You're the Sect Master." Yi Xian was speechless. He still wanted to say something, but at this moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly enveloped him. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He raised his head to look at the sky, only to see the sky suddenly split open. Then a shadow floated out and that shadow looked down at him. Meanwhile, Li Muki's expression changed drastically. "Sect Master, quickly return to the sect with me." Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Xuetong spoke abruptly. "Listen to him and enter the protective barrier." As soon as she finished speaking, she charged towards the protective barrier. Li Muqi hurriedly brought Yi Xian along and vanished on the spot. As soon as they vanished, the area where Yi Xian stood earlier was instantly wiped out by a mysterious force. When he noticed this scene, Yi Xian's expression instantly became extremely unsightly. Soon the three of them appeared on top of a mountain peak. Li Muqi glanced at the sky, then looked at Yi Xian. Sect Master, the 10 ultimate shrine besieged divine sect this time for our divine sect's divine ring. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, I'm not your sect master. As he spoke he was about to take off the ring but he couldn't take it off at all. At that moment Li Muqi said, the divine ring has recognized you as its master. As he spoke he slowly knelt down, please protect my divine sect master. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn it. Was that woman from the Divine Spirit Palace crazy? Asking me to be divine sect master. Does she want me to save divine sect? But how am I supposed to save them? At that moment Xiaota suddenly said, young master, you're too stupid. That woman doesn't want you to save divine sect. She definitely wants Sister Tianming to save divine sect. Your divine sect master, what does that mean? It means that divine sect has Sister Tianming behind them. It's for you. If it wasn't for Sister Tianming, she probably wouldn't even have let you through the door. You need to know what's going on. Yi Xian said indifferently, the next time I see Qing, I'll say that you're bad-mouthing her. Xiaota was instantly enraged, don't slander me. Sister Tianming is my faith. Yi Xian said, do you think Qing believes you or me? After a moment of silence Xiaota said, young master, I apologize for my words just now. I'm sorry. I Xiaota will be more careful with my words in the future. Please be magnanimous and let me go. Yi Xian was speaking.